Welcome back to another deadline stream. The international break is finally over. I'm looking ahead to Game Week 4. The deadline will be in just under 2 hours, and I'll be answering all your questions as always and covering all the key topics and recapping some of the content I've done over the last couple of weeks, from best free hit teams to wildcard squads, my team selection and delving into different transfer plans. There was also my predicted lineups from yesterday, and I have made several changes after the Friday press conferences, so these will be the definitive predicted lineups, and we'll see how many I get right. For future installments, it's going to be quite difficult to maintain that alongside Use Your Fantasy content, but I'm going to see what you lot think in terms of what you want to see on the channel. And I also made a Use Your Fantasy chip strategy guide, which was released yesterday for a double upload, and let me know if you want to see a reaction stream tonight or tomorrow, and that will conclude the Game Week 4 content per se. But of course, the reaction stream will also be a preview for the following game week in match day 5. Let me start off with the first question that I see, and if we do have a super chat goal, this live stream will go on for even longer, and I'm also going to gift 10 memberships in today's live stream and celebrate the return of Fantasy Premier League. But yeah, for some reason, this will be absolutely amazing news to all of you. The chat isn't working. Yeah, now I've gotten it to work. Let's see if we can get things rolling. And let's go for the first comment that I see. So James123 says, "Hello Dylan, hope you're well. Who is the best Sar replacement and the best striker to replace Wood out of Ekitike or Gyökeres? I already have Joao Pedro and Mateta." So my favourite Sar replacement is Semenyo, and that's what I'm looking to do myself. The problem is a lot of people won't have enough money in the bank. Even in my case, with 0.7 million at my disposal, I still need an extra 0.2 to make that move possible. So if you can't afford Semenyo, it might just be worth going for a cheap option like Dewsbury Hall or Josh King and having a lot of money in the bank and using those funds to upgrade another area of your team. But another midfielder I would be looking at potentially at a similar price point is Kudus, but that's only because of Tottenham's fixtures and the fact that Kudus should start week in, week out. He's not going to score that many goals. I think he might do this weekend, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think he'll score many goals for Tottenham Hotspur. As for your forward replacement, I still prefer Ekitike in the short term, but Alexander Isak is obviously a massive headache, and that will cause a problem for you at some stage, but I don't think that'll be the case this weekend, and you could even say for the next week or two, based on Arne Slot's comments. And Alexander Isak hasn't had much of a preseason, and to be honest, he hasn't had any at all, just doing individual training away from Newcastle. So, yeah, I'm going to say Ekitike for now. From Game Week 7 onwards, though, Gyökeres will be the more secure option out of the two. And to be fair with Chris Wood, you could still keep him because there are the Burnley and Sunderland fixtures coming up. The only concern, of course, is having the new manager in Ange Postecoglou, and he might favour Kalimundo or maybe going for Igor Jesus from the get-go. And sell Borja for Munoz. As much as I like Munoz, I wouldn't be selling Borja necessarily. I did say in my, I think it was my recent Transfer Tips podcast actually, that I don't think Tottenham will keep that many clean sheets, but Borja can still give you returns through other avenues, even DEFCON, as we saw controversially, of course, in Game Week 4. And just to make it clear, the problem isn't Borja getting DEFCON, it's the fact that he can get those points added retrospectively and not Lacroix, for example, because of the time those matches took place. But I'd probably keep Borja for now in your situation. Cylindra says, "Hey Dylan, I've got one free transfer and 1.8 million in the bank. Currently I've got Sar in my team. So I've got 3 options. Should I start Wood, bench Sar, and sell Dorgu to Lacroix, Senesi?" Yeah, I prefer selling Dorgu to... It's a tough one. I like both of those defenders, but yeah, it's probably going to be Lacroix at the moment, but I think you can't go wrong with either one of them. You put another scenario there, but I'm going to stick with the second option that I just mentioned there. Selling Sar 28.2 million mid. I mean, if you don't have Semenyo, then fair enough, that could be the one. I'm not that bullish on Semenyo this week. He has never scored nor assisted against Brighton in his career, but there's always a first time for everything, right? But it's definitely between that and also selling Dorgu to Lacroix. Those are the best options for your FPL team. For my family team, which two do I start? Yeah, I'd start Konsa, and then it's quite tough, but I'd probably lean towards Diouf. Welcome, Easy. I'm doing well. Hopefully you are too. My first team with 3 injuries, Aina, Sar, and Cunha. Should I use a -4 and triple captain Salah to cover the -4 points, or probably use the wild card? Look, Salah is still a good triple captaincy option. I haven't discussed it too much this week because I was, you know, highlighting his record against Burnley, which is very poor actually. 1 goal and 2 assists in 10 matches, but it's Salah and it's also Burnley, and I think Liverpool will win quite comprehensively this weekend. So it's still a very safe bet overall. But you've also got Erling Haaland facing Burnley at home in Game Week 6. I think the ceiling would be higher with Haaland in such a fixture. And there's also the other two newly promoted clubs in the first half of the season at home for Erling Haaland. So I think for the triple captaincy, it might be best to go for Haaland if possible. But Salah is still going to be one of the best and reliable options you can go for when it comes to that chip. I get your thinking, but I wouldn't use a chip just to cover off a -4 hit. My plan is to replace the midfielder, Sarr or Cunha. Well, Cunha, both players are ruled out for this weekend, of course, but Sarr should be available by game week 7, 6, 7, basically, for that Liverpool fixture. That's the timeline we've got at the moment. It's a tough one, to be fair, but Cunha is more expensive. I'd probably lean towards selling Cunha, and if you can buy Semenyo that way, yeah, I'd definitely sell Cunha. My second team doesn't have injury problems, but I will sell Watkins to Ekitike. Yeah, I agree. Watkins and Villa have been very poor so far, but they've got a great record against Everton. I don't think they've lost in the Premier League since 2016 against the Toffees, so that's a run of 12 games. So, yeah, I think Aston Villa could bounce back here and get the first victory of the season and score their first goal. I think Ollie Watkins is still worth holding on to, but I get why you want to chase the upside with Ekitike, and I think that's a great transfer for this week, but I think long-term, Watkins is still the more consistent asset and also more secure. But of course, based on what we've seen so far this season, I understand why you want to sell. Even if Villa have Burnley and Sunderland next, that's going to be the problem. The same goes for Nottingham Forest assets like Murillo, Chris Wood, and all the others that we have in our FPL teams. With the appointment of Ange to Forest with his attacking football high line, is it possible Murillo and Milenkovic Defcon will come to the end? Not necessarily. If Forest do play as high up as some people expect, I don't think that's going to affect Murillo and Milenkovic's Defcon potential. Maybe it will affect the matches where they get them in. Maybe they can actually accrue more Defcon in easier fixtures on paper, but less so in the more difficult games. That is a possibility, but I still think they've got that high ceiling when it comes to defensive contributions. And I think for the first game anyway against Arsenal, he won't change too much. But then in the coming weeks, especially against Burnley and Sunderland, that's where you can experiment a little bit more and introduce a more attacking style of football at Nottingham Forest. Izzy says, well, that's a lot of managers there, almost 700,000 transferring in Isak, even though he's not guaranteed in the first 11, at least until the next international break in October. Yeah, but it's obviously a new toy. Alexander Isak was a great option last season, and I think a lot of people have the expectation that he's going to score 15 to 20 goals minimum in the Premier League alone. So, yeah, I think it's a bit too early. I talked about this in my transfer tips. He's one to add to the watch list. We can start considering him again, but I wouldn't be buying him in until Game Week 5 at the very at the very earliest. I think a more realistic time frame is probably Game Week 7, actually. Tuan says, hi Dylan, in die to Grealish and -4 sells to Donnarumma, yes or no? I will not be taking a hit for goalkeeper. I don't think so. And Donnarumma faces Man United at home this week. I don't think he'll keep a clean sheet, and there's no guarantee he starts. There is still a possibility that Trafford keeps his spot because he was Man City's best player against Brighton a couple of weeks ago. Hey buddy, deadline stream super necessary. Team's a bit in the mud. Yeah, so is mine, as you can see on screen. In Dye's yellow flagged, which is something that changed from my predicted lineups podcast. Ismail Assar is obviously red flagged, and I haven't made those necessary substitutions just yet. And no transfers, but I talked about this in several videos actually, my team selection and the transfer plans. I am considering a defender move like Murillo to Lacroix, and not only does that give me a solid starting 11 for this week, and if Ndai misses out, I've got Chris Wood coming in, but it also gives me enough funds to buy Antoine Semenyo to replace Ismail Assar either this week for a -4 hit, or I can wait until the next and I can do that for free. So I am looking at that sort of transfer. Even Daniel Munoz is under consideration, but he does cost 5.6 million now. And Mateta in for Chris Wood is another transfer which gives me enough funds to buy Antoine Semenyo, who is my long-term midfielder target. Of course, there were the regrets from last week not buying Bruno Fernandes for free and captaining him. That resulted in more than 20 points being swung the other way. But I still have confidence that I can make good of the situation and replace Ismail Assar in the best possible way. Kevy says, have Sarr, JSL and Palmer who are issues, 2 free transfers, 2 million in the bank, thinking of just changing Sarr and Strand Larsen and leaving Palmer on the bench this week. Yeah, I think that's viable for sure. Waltemada punt tempting. Yeah, and I was always of the opinion that Waltemada's more likely to start than Vissa anyway. With the Congolese striker missing out through injury, that only makes it more secure, in my opinion. And Wolves will obviously be hampered by that Strand Larsen news. There was a very negative press conference by Vitor Pereira, but yeah, Newcastle should fancy themselves to get their first victory of the season and score a couple of goals, because the last few matches have been quite poor from an entertainment perspective, you could say, except for that 3-2 thriller against Liverpool, but they ultimately lost the game, so they won't care too much about that. In terms of your transfer plans, I do like the look of it overall. And Cole Palmer could still start this weekend. I think the press conference yesterday gives me less confidence, but it's still a possibility. Easy says, as a Chelsea fan, Joao Pedro will play in the first 11. Yeah, I agree. It's not a guarantee, but I think that will be the case. Mark Guillou not proven enough to start. And also for the Spanish under-21 side, he didn't even start a single game. He came on as a sub in the first match, and then he was just benched for the entire match that just went by. So I don't think Mark Guillou will start. It's more likely that Tyrick George will play up front for Chelsea if they want to go for a younger striker. But they can also play Caicedo with Reece James, Malo Gusto as the right back, Enzo Fernandez further forward, and Joao Pedro as the striker. Hey Dylan, would you do Frimpong to Munoz Lacroix for a -4? Otherwise, I have to start Nico Williams if Frimpong doesn't play. Well, Frimpong's ceiling is very high, so I get why you're looking at that sort of transfer, but I wouldn't be taking a hit to buy Frimpong, because ultimately Van Dijk is the safer pick in general. He'll probably get more points until the end of the season. So, look, if you are looking a bit shorter term, then Frimpong could definitely outscore Van Dijk. There's no doubt about that, but there's no guarantee he starts. And in my predicted lineup, I don't have Frimpong in there, but I have seen different websites with the Dutchman at right back, so I wouldn't rule it out completely. I just don't think it's worth a -4 hit. Now, in the case of, well, ultimately, you're looking to sell Frimpong, that's fair enough, but I think I just start Nico Williams. Munoz and Lacroix are great options. I would consider them for free. There's no doubt about that. But for a -4 hit, there's also Liverpool at home in the next 3. Yeah, I understand all the arguments and different sides, but I wouldn't do it. Hi Dylan, in die to Grealish and sells to Pope -4. Once again with the goalkeepers, I don't think it's worth a -4 hit. And Sells faces Burnley and Sunderland in the next 3 fixtures. If you wanted to sell him, do it by Game Week 7. I don't think it's worth selling Sells right now, especially for a hit. Indai to Grealish is an interesting one due to Indai's injury concern. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't consider it at all. And I said this for the last couple of weeks. I don't think you should swap one Everton midfielder to the other, assuming you've got one of Dewsbury Hall, Grealish, or Indai. The rest, I don't think, are FPL considerations for me. Durgesh puts his team, 2 free transfers and 3 injured players. You're considering 8 Nuri and Cunha to Senesi and Bruno, Semenyo or Nuri, Cunha, Watkins to Senesi, Paqueta, Haaland for a -4. Okay, so Senesi and Bruno / Semenyo. Okay. Yeah, that's the transfers I would recommend ultimately. You might even want to consider a Palace defender if you have the funds instead of Senesi, but yeah, I'd go for the first set of transfers there. Start one of Ndai, Reinders or Senesi. I'd start Ndai and probably have Reinders ready to come on if necessary, but Senesi has scored DEFCON in all matches so far. I wouldn't take him out yet, at least have him for Game Week 5 or 6. Is that going to be, what, in relation to Sells? Yeah, I agree with you, Lager. Kevy says how I missed the Prem over the international break. Yeah, I mean, I missed it to a certain extent, I'd say. Yeah, we'll see how that ages. So happy that club football is back, says Randy Savage. Gakpo's going to cook this week, says Singh. He is stronger in home matches, but the fixture is so appealing against Burnley. I have made some changes to my top 10 Captaincy options, but I've actually kept Gakpo in 6th, and I've actually put Wirtz a little bit ahead of him. I think this could be the week for Wirtz personally, but yeah, Cody Gakpo is still a solid option, of course. Can't decide if I want a wild card or take a -4 and address Palmer and Saka situation. Yeah, I don't know the rest of your team, but with those 2 big hitters potentially missing out this weekend, obviously Saka is confirmed. With Cole Palmer, there is still a possibility he starts. Yeah, I'd be leaning towards a -4 hit, but that's without knowing the context of your squad. Hey Dylan, thoughts on Xavi Simons? No guarantee that he starts this weekend. I was kind of 50-50 in my lineups video yesterday, and I will talk about my updated Spurs 11, but yeah, he will definitely get a start either in this game or in the Champions League, and my current prediction is that he'll get his first start against Villarreal next week and come off the bench against West Ham, but it isn't a guarantee. I could get that wrong there. So yeah, there we go. Ekatike captain with Salah Vice. I don't really mind that at all. And I talked about Salah's record earlier against Burnley. It's not great, but yeah, there's always a risk going against Salah. I don't think he should be avoided as the captain, even for triple captainers as well. But it's something worth bearing in mind. I think there will be better captaincy opportunities in the future for that specific chip. Hey Dylan, hope you're well. On my wildcard currently, Raya, Dubravka, Cucurella, Borro, Munoz, Senesi. Goodmanson, Salah, Gakpo, Semenyo, Grealish, King, Joao Pedro, Mateta, Gyökeres. Yeah, it's similar to what I discussed in my wildcard video over a week ago, and I don't have many reservations about what you've gone for. Now, the main changes for you include Raya in goal, which I do like the look of. I covered Arsenal defensively with, well, Gabriel in previous wildcard editions anyway. Gyökeres up front is still worth consideration, especially this week. And overall, I do like your attack a lot, but yeah, something I have been considering, and I might show it very soon, is having Erling Haaland in there. I think he could be the best captaincy option this week, even over Mohamed Salah. That is certainly a close call, but even over the next couple of weeks, you can cover Liverpool offensively with Gakpo and potentially Ekatike as a short-term sort of pick. But yeah, your 50-man squad is looking very solid. I don't have too many reservations in general. I would recommend... I mean, you got Munoz already, but Lacroix is still very appealing to me. But you don't necessarily need to have him on top of Munoz, and maybe balancing your defense is the best way to go. Well, it's possible, Ahmad. It's possible. I talked about this multiple times because we saw something similar happen last season, but that was under Nuno Espirito Santo. With Ange Postecoglou, it might be different. He might be looking to keep things the same for the next match or two, but definitely against Arsenal, where it's such a difficult fixture. And if he experiments a lot or plays a high line, I mean, Forest could get done big time, but I don't think they'll be that naive. Do you think Udogie comes back into the starting 11 now that he's not flagged? He's definitely going to challenge Jed Spence, and over time he should be the starting left back, but I think Spence will keep his spot for now. That is my sort of opinion on it. Yeah, discuss Spurs forwards and rank them. Well, I did do this in my Use Your Fantasy latest draft video, which is going to be published tomorrow. It's available for members and patrons right now. And I think I talked about this in the Lineups podcast yesterday. My favourite attacker in the long term is probably Xavi Simons, based on his potential and what he did a few years ago in Champions League. I think he's probably the most exciting of their attackers. Kudus is second simply for the minutes and the creativity. He's not going to score too many goals, though. Now, if you're looking a bit shorter term, Richarlison is the one to go for, but there is Colin Muani knocking on the door. And ultimately, in a couple of months' time, if Solanke's fully fit, I think he would be the starting striker for Tottenham Hotspur. But yeah, I think it's going to be Xavi Simons first, Kudus second, and in third place is Richarlison at this moment in time. I would not be considering Colin Muani for the time being, but that could certainly change if he impresses in training, gets a start, and starts to build some momentum in that Tottenham team. Start 2, Reinders, Wood, Rodgers. I'd start Reinders and Rodgers, personally. Thank you, Paredes, for being a member for 5 months. Sar Dilemma, switch to Semenyo or fix Giu to Mateta. Oh, that is such a difficult one. For this week, I prefer the Mateta move. I'll be honest with you. There is a slight chance, a very slim one, that Mark Giu starts. But yeah, I think Mateta looks really enticing for the next 2 game weeks. Long term, if you want someone for the next 5 game weeks and beyond, it has to be Semenyo for me. I think he is the best midfielder besides the obvious Salahs, Palmers, Sakas of the world. And even over the likes of Gakpo, I'd probably rank Semenyo higher if we're looking long term. Xavi Simons or Paqueta? Yeah, Paqueta's a bit underrated. He has been very impressive. He scored in the Carabao Cup and also in Game Weeks 2 and 3. He's on penalties as well. At 5.9 million, that is one of the better West Ham shouts for sure, but I'm still going to lean towards Xavi Simons for the Tottenham fixtures, and I also think Xavi Simons will start very soon. If he doesn't in Game Week 4, it should be the case in Game Week 5. Play King or Rangers? I'd play King this week. Is it worth a -4 to transfer out Dorgu for Anderson? I do not want to play Nico. I still don't think it's worth a -4 hit. I've actually got Leeds to score in that game. I know they haven't been scoring too many goals, but yeah, I think it's not worth a -4 hit there. Gakpo or Enzo? This week it's Gakpo. And for the next 3-4 game weeks, it's still Gakpo. Longer term, though, that could be a slight concern. Sarto Semenyo and downgrade Rodgers to someone for a -4. Look, Rodgers has been poor, but I wouldn't take it to get rid of him. He also played very well against Serbia. Then again, I think every England player did, and Serbia were terrible. But as much as I like Semenyo, I'm not entirely sure about selling Rodgers for a -4 hit this week. I think Villa could bounce back. What do you think of Sarto Gakpo? I have 2.3 in the bank. Looks good short term. I'm not so sure about that a bit longer term, to be honest. But yeah, I think that's fine. Semenyo would be the preference overall. I'm thinking Lacroix over Borro, but thinking I could catch a sell price rise on Borro. Yes, I'm not so sure how far away he is. It might be worth looking at the price changes. So I'm going to look at different screens for now. And this could also answer some other questions in the process. For those that haven't done so already, though, be sure to join my FPL mini league. The code is WFF0U7. And for a lot of the graphics in this stream, you will see it on the left-hand side. There is also links in the description. The code can be copied and pasted from that as well. But let's take a look at the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating. Wolves are top up until Game Week 9. Leeds, Bournemouth, Aston Villa and Newcastle complete the top 5. Then we've got Brighton, Sunderland, Brentford, Man United and Everton near the bottom. And the other teams, of course, you can see in mid-table like Arsenal, Chelsea and Liverpool, for example. Man City a little bit higher up, though, in 7th. With predicted points, Salah is top, but that's for the next 3 game weeks. If we look at this game week specifically, well, he is still number 1 with 8 predicted points, but it keeps changing from 8 to 8.2 to 8. So I don't think they fully know what his points will be. Haaland is 2nd. Mateta, Munoz and Semenyo are in the top 5, with Gyökeres, Ekitike, Richards, Watkins, Joao Pedro in the top 10. So quite interesting that Chris Richards, a 4-point family defender, is ranked so highly by Fantasy Football Hub. And in terms of my squad, this is how things look like at the moment. And it's not looking particularly great, with Ismail Assar being ruled out. Indai could also be unavailable. And Chris Wood might not even start the game against Arsenal. Apart from that, it should be okay. But even Joao Pedro is a slight concern, as discussed by Enzo Maresca yesterday. But this will actually surprise you if we look at the AI transfers recommended by Fantasy Football Hub. They say Sarto Semenyo, which is great. But in order to do that, I need funds. And they recommend doing Indai to Danga Ouattara and then Konsa to Richards as part of a -8. I just don't see myself doing that personally. It's more likely that I buy Lacroix in for Murillo or Mateta in for Chris Wood and then buy Semenyo for a -4 hit. I think that would be the best course of action for my FPL team. But yeah, even the Game Week rating is a little bit lower than previous weeks. And Game Week 3 was an absolute disaster for me with that Bruno Fernandes decision in the end. Let's also take a look at the price changes. And this might need a refresh because things change so quickly when it comes to transfer activity. So Mateta, Van Dijk, Raya, Vicario, Cucurella, Haaland and Kudus could all rise tonight. In terms of price falls, not all of these will happen, but you've got the likes of Marlon, Jorginho Rutter in there, Igor Jesus, who could even start in the early kickoff against Arsenal. And there are other options where that came from. Even Bowen, despite that return against Nottingham Forest back in Game Week 3. And yeah, there's a lot of names in here, but don't expect all of these to happen at the same time. I always say that when it comes to these price prediction algorithms. I think over the next couple of weeks, it will even itself out and they'll find the things that are different this season to identify these price rises and falls more accurately, I'd say. It's also worth looking at this poll I put out, which shows my transfer plans, and I'll probably put a similar one out in this live stream. So Munoz to Murillo, not Munoz to Murillo, I'd never do that. Murillo to Munoz is actually the top voted option with 33%. In second is getting Lacroix in, which gives me enough money to buy Semenyo either this week or next week. That all depends on if I want to take a -4 hit or not In third is holding Murillo and Chris Wood for those Sunderland and Burnley fixtures. And in last is Chris Wood to Mateta, which also gives me the funds for Antoine Semenyo. Let's compare the stats of the two best captaincy options this week in Salah and Erling Haaland. This might surprise you, but Salah has 0 big chances so far this season compared to Haaland's 6. In terms of big chance created, Salah does lead this with 3 to Haaland's 1, and the same goes for key passes with 4 in favour of the Egyptian. 1 goal and 1 assist for the Egyptian winger, and Haaland has 3 goals and no assists. But the shots, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Haaland with 14 and Salah with only 4. All of them have been inside the box, but Haaland has 13 in the penalty area. The XG is also 0.31 for Mohamed Salah and 3.88 in Erling Haaland's favour there. The XA is actually very close, but Salah narrowly leads that, and expect him to trump all the creativity stats when you compare him to Erling Haaland. But when it comes to shooting and goal scoring, no one tops Erling Haaland so far this season. Let's also check out the website fpl.team, and this would be my starting 11 if I buy Antoine Semenyo and Lacroix. I could then have Konsa coming in for Ndiaye if the Senegalese forward misses out entirely, so that could also work pretty well. I could even have Chris Wood coming off the bench instead of Konsa. That is another possibility for me. I'm not completely against that, to be fair, but I think Villa could keep a clean sheet at Everton. I have currently gone for a 2-1 Villa win, and you'll see my scoreline predictions very soon. If I had Erling Haaland, I'd be very tempted to captain him, but Salah currently takes the armband for me, which is maybe a bit boring, but surely he's going to get a few goals over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully that's the case against Burnley. Now, with FPL Challenge, I won't talk about this until the deadline has passed, but I've still got Alisson, Munoz, Bruno Fernandes, Salah, Haaland as my captain, and Jean-Philippe Mateta. And this week, any players from Man United or Man City will score double the number of points, and that explains the captaincy I've got at this moment in time. And it could even result in an extra City player, maybe United as well, but I think it's probably likely I'm going to stick with Fernandes and Haaland and then cover other teams like Palace and Liverpool. So for those that are unaware, these are my team selection graphics, and I talked about this a couple of days ago now. I think it was on the Thursday, and that was already available for members and patrons the day earlier. But this was my Gameweek free review. The less said about this, the better. It all came down to that one decision, buying Bruno Fernandes to replace Cole Palmer. Instead, I took a -4 for Sarr and Chris Wood, who I captained. And while Sarr scored, he got injured, and Chris Wood blanked against West Ham. So ultimately, it was a flop, and I lost out on 20 points in the process. And that's how quickly things can change in Fantasy Premier League, and the prices have remained fairly stable over the last couple of weeks. But Lacroix is going to be my top consideration right now, and that would result in Semenyo being bought for Ismaila Sarr. And of course, Munoz is still in my thinking, but he went up in price 2 days ago to 5.6 million, and Mateta could rise in price tonight to 7.6. So this would be my most likely team selection for Gameweek 4, but it is subject to change. And with that Ndiaye news that happened, this could even result me in buying Semenyo this week for a -4 hit instead of waiting until Gameweek 5 to make that sort of transfer. So you can see the expected points as well. Some players do fluctuate quite a lot, like Salah from 8 to 8.2 and vice versa, but ultimately these are fairly accurate according to Fantasy Football Hub. And what I'm going to do now, and of course in a couple of minutes I'll go back to your questions, is go through scoreline predictions, predicted lineups and stuff like that, so you're well prepared for the upcoming deadline. I've still kept that Arsenal 2, Nottingham Forest 0 scoreline, but I am in two minds about that, and Forest could certainly score in the lunchtime kickoff. Bournemouth 1, Brighton 1, and the Seagulls have a great record against the Cherries. Crystal Palace 3, Sunderland 1, Everton 1, Aston Villa 2, Fulham 2, Leeds United 1, Newcastle 2, Wolves 0, a 2-2 draw in that fierce London derby between West Ham and Tottenham Hotspur. I have changed the Brentford-Chelsea score to 2-1 based on the injury updates we got yesterday, and a few of the South American players like Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Joao Pedro, Esteval are all doubts to start. I think they will do so, but their fitness and minutes might be managed because that long travel distance between South America and England is no joke. I've done it plenty of times myself. Burnley 0, Liverpool 4. I'm going to keep that, but yeah, I think that could easily be 5-3. I just think Liverpool will win quite comfortably in the end, and Man City 2, Man United 1. That's one of the most difficult games to predict this week. City are the better team, but they are below United in the Premier League table, and yeah, Amorim has a good record against Pep Guardiola. Now, in terms of the team weakness and the highlight player this week, it's the same as what I talked about in some of my videos over the last couple of weeks. So Sunderland, despite their great start, are still vulnerable defensively, especially in central areas, and I think Jean-Philippe Mateta will be a great transfer this week, and that's why I wouldn't rule out buying him for Chris Wood in my situation and really going for it for Game Week 4. Now, with the clean sheet odds, Liverpool remain top with a 49% chance of keeping one against Burnley away. Arsenal are second, facing Nottingham Forest at home. Crystal Palace are third against Sunderland, also at home. And then Newcastle are fourth with that Wolves fixture. And they will be without Strand Larsen, of course, which boosts these clean sheet odds even further. Fulham are fifth, facing Leeds. And Chelsea remains sixth, facing Brentford away in that West London derby. And Burnley are last, facing Liverpool at home with an 11% chance of keeping a clean sheet. Now, the top 10 captaincy options have changed a little bit, but I have kept it fairly stable in general. So in 10th, I got Bruno Fernandes. He is 1 goal shy from 100 goals for Manchester United. Gyökeres is 9th. Daniel Munoz is 8th. And Joao Pedro has dropped from 5th to 7th because he might not even start the game based on Maresca's comments yesterday. Gakpo remains 6th. And I've put Florian Wirtz in the top 5 now, despite a poor start to the season. Mateta is 4th. Ekitike is in the podium with Erling Haaland and Salah. But the more I think about it, I think Erling Haaland is a great captaincy option and he could easily be first in this list as well. So what I'm going to do now is go to the lineups and show you the updated predictions for the 20 Premier League teams. So with Arsenal, I've kept it quite stable. Not much really to report. Raya, Timber, Mosquera, Gabriel, Calafiori, Zubimendi, Odegaard, Rice, Madueke, Eze and Gyökeres. So whilst there were positive news on Havertz and Saka, they both remain out. And William Saliba is in contention to play, so he might even take Mosquera's spot and start alongside Gabriel, basically, and I wouldn't rule that out completely. That would be the one possible change to this Arsenal starting 11, but there's no real need to rush Saliba back. It will be a late decision in terms of if he's going to start or not, and ultimately I think Arsenal will want him for that first Champions League game away from home against Athletic Bilbao, so I think Mosquera will get the nod. In the case of Aston Villa, I have made several changes, so Emi Martinez or Bizot, Marco Bizot. We're going to see who's going to start, but I'm going to go for the Argentine. Matty Cash at right back, despite the yellow flag. I think his father said that he should be okay, so I've got him at right back this time round with Konsa, Mings and Luka Dean, Tielemans and McGinn, and I've put Harvey Elliott on the right, Guesson on the left, Rodgers as the attacking midfielder, and Ollie Watkins up front. In the case of Bournemouth, I'm very conflicted about who is going to start right back. Adam Smith is still doubtful. And Iraola said after the Tottenham game a couple of weeks ago that Adam Smith will be out for a couple of weeks, but that international break does warp things when it comes to injury updates. But I think James Hill or Araujo are the most likely to come in at right back. And in that Tottenham game, when Smith came off very early, it was Hill who came on and did a solid job in that 1-0 victory. So I'm going to put him in here for now. He is a centre-back by trade, but he can play on the right. Petrovic in goal, Diakite, Senesi and Troffert. With Scott and Adams, we could see a midfield change, but it won't be Adams. He is arguably Bournemouth's most important player. Semenyo on the right, Brooks on the left, and then Tavernier alongside Evanilson there in that attack. With Brentford, I haven't made any changes so far. So Keller in goal, Coyote, Collins, Van den Berg, and Lewis Potter. Henderson and Yarmoliuk in the midfield. Dango, Ouattara, and Sharda on the wings. And then Damsgaard just behind Igor Thiago. With Brighton, I've made a few changes here to their starting 11. So Verbruggen in goal, Veltman as the right back, as Vifa is still doubtful. Van Heck, Dunk and De Kuyper in that defensive line, with Beleba and Hinshelwood in the midfield. Ayari is still capable of starting as well. Minter and Mitoma on the wings. Gruder, who scored the winning goal against Man City, just behind Jorginho Rota, and I think Danny Welbeck could be on the bench this time round. In the case of Burnley, no changes, but we could see Florentino Luis start at some stage, and maybe he takes the place of Hannibal Miebri, and this turns into a 4-3-3 formation, and you have no attacking midfielder in there. But Dubravka in goal, Walker, Ekdal, Estev, Hartman, Ogochukwu, Cullen, Bryn Larson, Hannibal Miebri, Jadon Anthony, and Lau Foster. And Burnley could even resort to a back five in these difficult games coming up, like Liverpool and Man City over the next 3 game weeks. With Chelsea, this is a very difficult one to predict as well, with Cole Palmer still doubtful, and ultimately, if he's fit enough, he will start the game and build some match sharpness in time for that really important game against Bayern Munich next week. But Robert Sanchez in goal, a back four of Gusto, Chalobah, Tosin and Cucurella seems likely, but in the midfield, we could see Reece James alongside Caicedo, which pushes Enzo Fernandez further forward, and then Esteval and Neto on the wings, and Joao Pedro up front. But with Delap injured for the next 2 to 3 months, that ultimately is a big blow for Chelsea, and they would have played him in the striker role, Joao Pedro as the attacking midfielder, and Enzo Fernandez alongside Caicedo. In the case of Crystal Palace, they have multiple injuries like Wharton and Sarr. They're both going to miss this weekend, but to replace them, I've got Lerma and Yeremi Pino, and the rest speaks for itself with Henderson, Richards, Lacroix, Gay, Lerma, Hughes, Munoz, Mitchell, Kamada, and Mateta. And I think that's the most likely starting 11 for Crystal Palace. With Everton, Ndai is a bit of a doubt right now. I'd be more concerned about him starting than Mikalenko. So we could see a few changes like Garner at left back, Eric Bowen in the midfield, and then one of Alcaraz or Dibbling on the right. Even McNeil is another option that Everton have to offer there. But Pickford, O'Brien, Tarkowski, Keane, Idrissa Gana Gay, Garner, Dewsbury Hall, Grealish, who won the Premier League Player of the Month award, and Beto, they should all start there for the Toffees. And with Fulham, I'm also concerned about who starts at right back. It could be Sessegnon. They might even go for a new signing in Kevin, who could be on the left-hand side, and that pushes Iwobi to a deeper role. But Leno, Tete, Anderson, Bassi, Sessegnon, Sandenberg, Lukic, Wilson, King, Iwobi, and Manice is my likely 11 there for Fulham. In the case of Leeds United, Perry is injured, so Darlow is most likely to replace him. And of course, Meslier isn't too far behind there. Bogle, Rodon, Strauch, Goodmanson. Ampadu remains doubtful, but I think he could start over Gruev. Longstaff, Stack, James, Nonto, and Calvert-Lewin, as Nemecha is a slight injury doubt as well going into this Fulham fixture. With Liverpool, I'm going to stick with the same 11. Alisson, Bradley, Konate, Van Dijk, Kerkez, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Salah, Wirtz, Gakpo, Ekitike. Now, they could still play Szoboszlai as a right back, as they have done in the previous games, and then play McAllister in the midfield, but they need to build Bradley's minutes at some stage, and Frimpong is available. So I think the biggest doubt with Liverpool is who starts at right back, but I'm going for Conor Bradley. And to be honest, a similar argument could be levelled at Man City. Will it be Matheus Nunes or Rico Lewis? And will it be Donnarumma or Trafford? But I'm going for Donnarumma and Nunes at this moment in time, with Ruben Dias, Kusanov, and Gvardiol, who is now available, Rodri, Bernardo Silva, and Reinders in the midfield. And don't be surprised to see Foden start, but I've gone for Oscar Bob, Doku, and Erling Haaland. We are approaching the end of the 20 Premier League teams, but Man United is another one to cover, with Binder in goal, and Ruben Amorim essentially said that he's definitely going to play Yoro, De Ligt, and Shaw in the defensive line, and Casemiro and Mainu in the midfield, which pushes Bruno Fernandes further forward, as Mason Mount and Cunha are both injured, and the same goes for Diogo Dalot, and that's why I've got Amad Diallo and Dorgu as the wing-backs. But Mbumo's there in the front line, alongside Benjamin Sesko, and Xerxes is another option. With Newcastle, Nick Pope, Trippier, Cher, Byrne, and Livramento is the likely backline, unless they go to a defensive, a different sort of shape, as they did against Leeds United, and going for a back three, and that would mean Botman starts, and even Lewis Hall could be another potential starter, and that would push Trippier out of that starting 11. But I'm going to keep this same sort of base for now, with Tonali, Guimaraes, and Joelinton, who is now back from that injury. Elanga, Barnes, and Walter Mada is a much changed forward line for Newcastle. In the case of Nottingham Forest, I'm also conflicted about this. Will it be Morato as the left back and Nico Williams pushed to the right-hand side? But I'm going to go for Savona to get his first Nottingham Forest start in that right-back spot. Nico Williams will keep his place in the left-hand side, Murillo and Milenkovic in central defence, and Sells in goal. Sangari and Anderson in the midfield. Ndoi, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi, and it could be Chris Wood, but there is still a chance that one of Kalimundo or Igor Jesus starts for Nottingham Forest. With Sunderland, I'm going to keep this also quite consistent with Rufs, Hume, Mukiele, Alderete, Renildo Mandava, Sadiki, Diarra, Xhaka, Talbi, Lefay, and Mayenda. And with Tottenham Hotspur, I've made one change from yesterday's video, and that's Brennan Johnson in for Xavi Simons. But we could see a shift to a 4-2-3-1 formation, and one of those central midfielders will drop out to facilitate Xavi Simons in the attacking areas. But I'm going to go for this 4-3-3 for now against West Ham, with Akaru in goal, Borro, Romero, Van de Ven, and Spence, Paulinho, Sarr, Bentancur, Kudus, Johnson, and Richarlison. With West Ham, I've gone for Hermansen, Walker-Peters, Mavropanos, Kilman, Diouf, Soucek, Ward-Prowse, Bowen, Mateus Fernandes, Paqueta, and Callum Wilson. And the final team is Wolves. Strand Larsen is injured, so Hwang Hee-chan should start up front, with Jose Sarr in goal, Santiago Bueno, Agbadou, and Totti Gomez in that defence, João Gomez and Andre in the midfield. Chachauna could start as the right wing-back, but there's also the possibility of Rodrigo Gomez, who has scored in his last 2 games in terms of the Carabao Cup and the Premier League. Wolf on the left-hand side, Menetzi, Arias, and Hwang Hee-chan as the forwards. Let's now go back to my FPL team for a little bit, and very soon we'll be locking in our final squads for Game Week 4. And yes, hopefully this has all helped you, but those are my final predicted lineups, just so you see. There are receipts, they're on the channel, you can see them, and we can assess how well I did in the end. So what I'm going to do now is give 5 memberships, and by the very end, I'm also going to gift 5 more if we hit 200 likes on this live stream. So let's be sure to do that, and I do appreciate those that have been tuning in from the start. So let's see who gets them right now. So Silly Bear A2K Codes, Kerem, Gary Duffy, and Terry Irwin. Enjoy your memberships for an entire month. That means you'll get early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. Gary says praying for a Verts goal. I mean, you don't need to pray for it. It is Burnley, but I think he will score this weekend. King or Tete for the free hit. King. 2-0 Everton, says Barbary Corsair. I'm of the opinion that Aston Villa will bounce back, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Chief Nerd says Chelsea. It's all covered in alphabetical order. Just rewind the stream a little bit, and you will see my Chelsea predicted lineup. I did have Cole Palmer originally in yesterday's video, but yeah, I just, after the Enzo Maresca press conference, I'm less convinced about that. But sometimes you can't look too much into what a manager says, because they are being very deliberate in what they're saying. Yeah, Ndai is an injury doubt, yes. He's got a knock. It shouldn't be a serious issue, so do I think he's going to be out long term? Definitely not, but he could be on the bench or even left out of the squad this week, and that's certainly a possibility. I've got him in my current predicted lineup, but I'm less convinced about him, of course. Ivanoson versus Mateta. Yeah, they're both good options. I would lean towards Mateta, but not by much. I don't think Villa will score this game week. Nah, they have to score at some stage. I mean, they haven't scored in 3 Premier League games. They're the only team in England's top 4 leagues to not have scored a goal, and they've got a great record against Everton. I'm convinced they'll score. Do they win the match? That's another story. I think they will, but yeah, considering their recent form, I don't really blame people for being so pessimistic about their chances. Grealish is not on penalties, no. The main penalty taker for Everton, I believe, would be Beto, and in pre-season he took one, but of course that was a much different starting 11. Grealish shouldn't be on penalties. Yeah, Bizot. Do people actually think Bizot is going to start over Emi Martinez? That's an interesting one. Maybe not FPL-wise, but in general, that could also impact Konsa's chances, for example, or in Dye if he starts. Sell Sarr or hold? I think he's a sell. That was also covered in my original Transstits podcast over a week ago. Hey Dylan, on wildcard, Paqueta and Raya or Xavi Simons and Sanchez? That's a tricky one. I'm going to say Xavi Simons and Sanchez, but there's no guarantee that Xavi Simons starts this week. Who do you think are the best replacements for Cunha? Semenyo would be a simple one. A2K Code says, it's my birthday in a few days. Your membership is a great gift. Well, enjoy your birthday in a couple of days' time, and I'm glad that YouTube decided to give you the birthday fortune, I guess, because it wasn't up to me, I'm going to be honest. But yeah, now that I know that, I'm happy you got the membership. So enjoy it for an entire month and enjoy the celebrations with your family and friends. So yeah, no worries there. And the same goes to Karem and Silly Bear. So welcome, Safair. Smash the like. Thank you very much. As he says, we are going to try to get this to 200 likes. So by the end of this deadline stream, that will be the aim. Thoughts on Watkins to Haaland and Verts to King? Yeah, I like those transfers in general. Now, I think Watkins will bounce back, and I have back Verts to score this weekend. So it's a very tricky one, but I do like Haaland and King as a duo, and I think Haaland himself would be enough anyway. I'm going to say keep Watkins and Verts for now. Well, best free at Team Vic. Hate to say it, but I have made a video on this, so it's probably worth just going to that one. I've made several different drafts. There's one with Marmoush. You can ignore the Marmoush pick, of course, because he got injured since the recording of that video, but the rest is still up to date, and they can be very good options. As I just mentioned, Ferguson, Ndiaye is not officially ruled out, but there is a chance he doesn't start against Aston Villa this weekend. He's got a knock. David Moyes didn't seem too optimistic in the press conference yesterday, but we'll wait and see what happens. Ultimately, I might make some transfers and take a -4 hit to have the squad depth necessary to cover for such an absentee. I don't think Wood starts personally. New Zealand trip is basically 3 days travel. Yeah, it's, 25 to 30 hours? Also think Andrew will prefer a pressing striker, to be honest. Yeah, it's a possibility, and I think Chris Wood will be a worse FPL option, even if he continues to start under Ange, because he built a great relationship with Nuno, and since he joined the club, I think that was December of 2023, only Erling Haaland scored more Premier League goals than Chris Wood, so I think that could be a massive miss for Forest and Chris Wood. But yeah, you might have a point about the need for a pressing striker in Ange Postecoglou's system, someone more mobile, and this could be a nice excuse, of course, the travel distances and also the jet lag to have Kalimundo or Igor Jesus start up front. But yeah, that's another doubt I've got about Nottingham Forest. I think that could be another change there in the starting 11. Praying for a birthday decent score also. So we've got a few birthdays in the house. I think September's quite a popular month for that. Jadera says, my team sells Dubravka, Nico Williams, Cucurella, Concert, Pedro Porro, Estev, Salah, Elanga, Semenyo, Ndiaye, Anderson, Joao Pedro, Richarlison, and Marguillo. I'm confused if I should wildcard or take a -4. I don't think you need to wildcard necessarily. I get why you're considering it, with Ndiaye being potentially injured this weekend. You've also got Marguillo, who he might start this week, but he's ultimately not a long-term asset. I think, if anything, take a -4 hit or use a free transfer. I don't think you need to wildcard just yet. Semenyo or Mateta on a free hit? Mateta. Like I mentioned before, Semenyo hasn't scored or assisted against Brighton. I'm not saying he can't do it this weekend, but I'd be more confident in Mateta doing the business against Sunderland. Sefer has now been a member for 6 months. Thank you very much. Diouf to Munoz and Cunha to Gakpo for a -4. Start Johnson or Wood. Yep, -4 transfer. I like that, to be fair. I like those moves. Long term, I think Semenyo is better than Gakpo, but for this week, I think Gakpo is levels above. And as for the starting question, I would lean towards Johnson, but both of them aren't guarantees to start in Game Week 4. Cunha to Verts or Gakpo? Yeah, difficult one. I think for this week, it's really close between those two, but Gakpo has been the most informed since the summer, and I've been talking about this for a couple of months now, but yeah, I'm still going to say Gakpo for now. Dylan, I have Saka in my team. Who is the best substitute? I think apart from Bruno Fernandes, you're looking at Semenyo. It's going to be one of those two. Sarr to Semenyo and Nico Williams to Lacroix for a -4. I'm looking at something identical to that, actually. But in my situation, I'm only potentially selling Murillo to give me the funds to buy Semenyo. Otherwise, I just do Sarr to Semenyo for free. So in your situation, I don't know your other options who could start if you decide to keep Nico Williams, but ultimately I'd say yes, that's a good -4 hit. I'm not that bullish on Semenyo this week. It's more of a long-term pick, actually. Harrison James says, tossing up if I take Borro or Cucurella out for Lacroix and double up on Palace defense with Munoz. Yeah, I think you should probably just keep Borro for now and diversify your defensive line. For example, in Game Week 6, Crystal Palace faced Liverpool. And whilst Lacroix can get DEFCON in that game, are you willing to start him and Munoz at the same time? You probably aren't. And in such a fixture, you'd probably start Munoz anyway for the attacking potential. So I just keep Pedro Porro for now. I made some terrible transfers in Game Week 3. Cunha was a disaster. Yeah, but there's also an element of luck, right? I mean, Cunha was looking sharp in the first few matches. All that was needed was a goal. And ultimately for him to be injured in the first 20-30 minutes, no one expected. Ultimately, him playing 90 minutes against Grimsby Town didn't help, but no one thought that would have such an impact and especially so soon afterwards. But yeah, I also, had that sort of thing and feeling about Game Week 3. The luck definitely shifted the other way, but yeah, ultimately in hindsight, when you've got a -4 hit compared to a free transfer, you tend to lean towards the free transfer, but I went for the jugular and it backfired big time. Yeah, this isn't my final team, Simon. I'm still going to make some transfers. Well, that's the plan anyway, and that was discussed early in the stream. So make sure to rewind and you can catch up at some stage, maybe towards the very end, just before the deadline closes. I'll show those graphics one more time, and I'll probably put a poll out in this stream, and you can vote as well. And you can see all my final transfer plans for Game Week 4. Geoboy says on wildcard, Mateta or Joao Pedro long term. It's still Joao Pedro for me, but both of them are solid choices. Thank you, Harrison James. Start Murillo or Agbadu? I'm going to say Murillo, but there's not much in it. And that's really just hoping for DEFCON because he hasn't been anywhere near it so far this season. David Darden says, hey Dylan, I have to replace Mark Guiu and have 3.9 in the bank. Mateta, Richarlison, or any other? Yeah, Joao Pedro is an obvious one. You might have him already in your setup. I like Ivanosen. I would rank him higher than Richarlison long term. Apart from that, I would be looking at Ekitike short term, especially for this week. I still like Ollie Watkins. I know Villa have been poor, and that could be a differential sort of play, but obviously you say 3.9 million, so you wouldn't have enough money for that. So you're looking at, what, 8.4 million? I'm going to say Mateta from those players. Will Elanga start? Yeah, I think so. If you rewind a few minutes, you will see my predicted lineups for all 20 Premier League teams, and Elanga does feature. There's also my video from yesterday, and Elanga has been there from the get-go. Okay, so there was... Actually, no, I did cover that already. Okay, so YouTube did bug out there. The Sasa says, what tactics do you recommend for the next 5-10 rounds? I don't really look at it that way in terms of formations. Ultimately, it depends on the personnel. Now, if you look at the start of this season, I'm more inclined to go 4-4-2 at the moment in a lot of game weeks. 4-5-1 isn't something I typically do, but once again, it all depends on your FPL picks, and you can still make that work. I'm going to say a mixture of 3-4-3 and 4-4-2. Will Reinders benefit with Marmoush absent, currently starting him? I mean, that's something to think about. I'm not that sure if that will play a big part. I think with Reinders, the biggest impact will be Rodri and the other midfielders around him and what sort of role he plays in a certain game, because he is versatile, which is a great asset to Man City, but not in terms of his FPL credentials. So ultimately, you want him playing further forward and making those late runs into the box. Well, Vivek, I think the free hit is a good option for some people this week, but in my case, for example, I'm not really looking at it. Check out my free hit video and see all the drafts. If you like something a lot and think it's a massive upgrade on your team, then you might want to play it. But we've also got Game Week 5, which could be another free hit window. And you've also got other game weeks later in the season. I might maybe show you some chip strategy slides very soon. And you can also have some more opinions on that as well. Start Rodgers or Kudus? I would start Kudus. I think he could score against his former club here, but I think for those with Rodgers and Watkins, you could still hold and start them this week, and I think they can repay the faith. But yeah, maybe I'm being a bit too stubborn with these Villa assets because they have been poor so far this season. Wood to Mateta for a -4. I'm not exactly sure about a hit. I'm looking at it myself for free, but for a -4 is a bit different. I'd probably say no. Would you take out both Marmoush and Sarr for a -4, or just one for free and one free next week? Ideally, it'd be one free transfer each week, but it also depends on your situation. Who are you going to start if you keep Sarr, for example, and sell Marmoush? Bench 1, Rodgers, Kudus, Semenyo, Reinders. I mean, based on the start of the season, you don't want to bench Semenyo, but historically he has the worst record against his upcoming club, with no goals and no assists against Brighton, but I'm going to say bench Reinders here. Robertson to start against Leeds, didn't travel with the USA squad, got 30 minutes against United and 20 against Chelsea. Yeah, that could be another possible change in that Fulham starting 11 I talked about, and that could push Sessegnon to the right wing spot, or maybe Sessegnon drops to the bench. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he's definitely worth a consideration on a free hit, but I'll be honest, Joachim Andersen would still be enough. He's cheaper, he can get Defcon, and ultimately you've got the Palace defenders, you've got Gabriel, Virgil van Dijk. I think those would probably take more importance in a free hit setup. Yeah, Jeremy Pino-Pon on a free hit, I'd be keen. He is still yellow flag, by the way, as far as I'm aware. Maybe that was removed after yesterday's press conference, but I think he will start. He can play both on the left and the right, and he will be a decent Ismail Assar replacement. But FPL-wise, I'd still look elsewhere, and ultimately, Semenyo, if you can stretch to him, would be my preference long-term. Well, football talk, the ideal replacement for me is Semenyo, but in order to do that, I need an extra 0.2 million because, yeah, with Ismail Assar, he's 6.5, Semenyo 7.4. I've currently got 7.4, 0.7 at my disposal. So what I'm going to do now is put a poll out on my channel, which is quite similar to the poll you saw, in my community post yesterday. Okay, so let's put these transfer plans. Roll is going to be one, believe it or not, although it's looking less likely by the minute. I'm going to say Sa to... Yeah, I think Maria's the first one. So Mario to Lacroix. To Munoz. Nah, okay, if you know what, forget. I'm not going to say roll the transfer. I'm not doing that crap. Wood to Mateta, and then money for Semenyo. Let's see if I got enough characters for that. Bruh, what the hell? Okay. And the second option. Take a -4 hit for Semenyo this week. Yeah, I think that would probably be it. Okay, I think that could be it. The characters is a bit of annoying, yeah. Okay, so that is going to be a rough sort of poll there. Yeah, the YouTube character limit doesn't exactly help at times. Also, for those that didn't see my transfer tips, the recent one, these will be some of the graphics that I talked about and the players highlighted. So Erling Haaland is an obvious buy for me. He scored 5 goals for Norway since I recorded that video as well. So that just makes him even more appealing in my opinion. And facing Man United, he's arguably the best captaincy option. And for Game Week 6, I think that could be the best triple captaincy opportunity for the first 6 Game Weeks of the season. You've also got Everton at home in Game Week 8. I think in Game Week 13, he also has a plum fixture, but ultimately, he faces all 3 newly promoted clubs in the first half of the campaign. So for the triple captaincy, I think Erling Haaland is a great option. With Jean-Philippe Mateta, I also think is a purchase despite an underwhelming start to his Premier League campaign with only 1 goal, 2 big chances and 8 FPL points. And despite scoring the penalty against Aston Villa, he only got 5 points from that game, but facing Sunderland and West Ham, I think he'll be quite consistent over the next 5 game weeks. The same goes for Enzo Fernandez, but this would be less of a priority, and this could be another option for you to replace Ismail Assar at a similar price tag. So in the case of the Argentine, he costs 6.6 million, but Semenyo would be my priority in the long term. Now, in terms of holds, I think Gyökeres is one of them. His ownership is roughly 25% at the time of this recording. And the next one is Cody Gakpo, who has also risen in ownership to 18%, and people are still buying him in, and I think he could still be a great option, despite the fact that most of his returns come at home, so maybe he will get a bigger return against Everton compared to Burnley away. That's a possibility. I still think he is worth the investment, but That's more of a short-term pick, in my opinion. Next up is Reinders, and he is still a hold for me. And despite all the hype he had after Game Week 1, I was talking about buying him in Game Week 3. He obviously blanked against Tottenham and Brighton, but I think against United and Burnley over the next 3, he can still do very well in those matches. Kudus is another hold. I don't think he's worth buying necessarily, but he's got the fixtures. He's a similar price tag to Ismail Assar, so that could be a decent replacement in the midfield. But there's also Xavi Simons to think about in that Tottenham attack, and he might be the best one in the long term. With Saliba, and I talked about this before the press conference yesterday, so I think this video was recorded on the Monday, and I talked about the possibility of Saliba returning very soon, and he's now in contention to play against Forest, so he's worth holding on to in my opinion, and I think I made the right call in not saying he's a sell. With Dorgu, this might be slightly different because now with Diogo Dalot being ruled out this weekend, he becomes less of a priority sell. But I look at the next 3 fixtures and I don't see many clean sheets. I mean, to be honest, it's only Sunderland at home in Game Week 7 where you would back United to keep a clean sheet on paper. And even then, when Dalot is back, I don't think Dorgu is nailed on in this team, and you can find better options elsewhere. With Vicario, he has gone up in price, I believe, to 5.1 million, or he will do so very soon, but I still think it's worth skipping him. With Tottenham Hotspur, you can go for Van der Ven at 4.6, or Pedro Porro, who is still my favourite, and obviously he went up in price to 5.6 a couple of weeks ago, but in the case of Vicario, I don't think he's worth that sort of price tag over Robert Sanchez, for example. The only upside, really, is the fixtures. And Ekitike is a 1-week punt. You might even argue for the next 2-3 game weeks he should be safe. But very soon, Alexander Isak will start matches for Liverpool and Ekitike could drop to the bench. But for this week, he is in my top 3 captaincy options, which I showed you earlier. And very soon, I'll probably go for them one more time without the commentary. So now let's go back to my FPL team. It looks ugly. Yes, it looks very, very ugly indeed. And remember, if you stay tuned by the end of this deadline stream, and we hit 200 likes, I'll be gifting 5 more memberships, so keep your eyes peeled for that. You'll get early access to my videos amongst many other perks. So in terms of this poll I put out, let's see if the live chat works. Okay, so the best option, according to you now, is Wood to Mateta, which gives me funds for Semenyo. Now, I won't necessarily buy Semenyo this week because that would be for a -4 hit, but that is still something that's not out of the question, to be honest. The second highest voted option is Murillo to Lacroix, and that gives me the funds for Antoine Semenyo. And in third is taking a hit for Semenyo this week, which includes one of Mateta or Lacroix being bought. And the last option is Murillo to Munoz. So things have changed. I think maybe seeing the context of my squad has also changed the outcome. Play Reinders or Van der Ven? I'd go for Reinders there. I'm already starting Borro and not sure if I should double up on their defense. Yeah, that's a good question, but I would go for Reinders there. Well, DVE clash, there's not really much else to talk about. He picked up a knock for Senegal, and he's a doubt for this weekend. David Moyes didn't seem too optimistic. I've got him in my predicted lineup, but I would not be surprised whatsoever to see one of Dibbling, Alcaraz, or McNeil start in that right wing spot. I think the most likely is Alcaraz, but yeah, I think with Ndai, I am prepared to make some transfers and have the squad depth necessary to come on if Ndai misses out, but I'm not going to be selling him in FPL. Do you plan to play the free hit and wildcard in back-to-back game weeks? Not necessarily. I mean, it's a possibility for my squad, but I don't think it's necessarily guaranteed. There's also the possibility of wildcarding then bench boosting, which I will likely do in the second half of the season, but for the first half, it remains unclear. Play Wood or King/Reinders? I'd go for King. Have Aina, Aitnuri, and Sarr in my team. What should I do? Well, I would recommend making 1 or 2 transfers there. You don't need to sell all of them at the same time, though. Yeah, so if you can do something like Aitnuri to Lacroix or Senesi, and then Sarr to Semenyo, I think long-term that's the best thing to do. Start Dubravka or sells? Sells. Pick 1, Tosin, Goodmanson, King, Pape, Mate, Sarr. I'm going to say King. Would you tick off Reinders to Semenyo, Watkins to Mateta, or just Reinders to Semenyo and roll a transfer? Yeah, Reinders to Semenyo and roll a transfer. Other players worth thinking about transferring for me is Tarkovsky. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that Semenyo transfer. And even this week, you don't have to do it now, but Semenyo always has a better chance of scoring than Reinders on paper. Start Reinders or risk and start Frimpong? I'd start Reinders. Would you bench boost with Dubravka, Reinders, Van der Ven, and Goodmanson? I wouldn't, personally. Now, if you're feeling it, back your gut, but I don't think that's the best bench boost. You could probably have a better one in the next couple of weeks. Should I bench Ndai for Wood? I'd start Ndai, and if he doesn't play, Chris Wood comes on anyway, which is what I'll likely do. Should I play Morgan Rogers or Reinders? I'm going to say Rogers this week. Kevy says, any advice, captaincy options for me? Gyökeres, Bowen, Waldemada, Mbumo, Wirtz, Semenyo, no Salah, Haaland, so always interesting captaincy picks. I'm going to say Wirtz. He has been poor this season, but I'm backing him to score his first Liverpool goal this weekend. I have Ndai in my starting 11, but it isn't a guarantee, of course. Gabriel or Van Dijk long term, I'd say Gabriel. Yeah, with Frimpong, I don't think he'll play. It's more likely that Bradley starts at right back. Now, Liverpool have a lot of options to play there. There's also Szoboszlai, who has done it in the last couple of matches, but I think he'll move back into the midfield, and I think it'll be Bradley at right back. That's my opinion. Start 2, Reinders, Wood, and Rogers. I would go for Reinders and Rogers. Dylan, can Gakpo and Ekitike cover Salah's points? Short term they can, and they have done so up until now, but the problem is Alexander Isak, because one of those two players will drop to the bench in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, having Haaland in the same team, I get the sacrifices you're making there. Start Reinders or Frimpong? Reinders. Thoughts on my free hit team, says Karem? Yeah, it's looking solid. I like the look of it. I talked about something similar, actually. I had Pope, Munoz, Lacroix, but I think I had Gabriel instead of Anderson, who was on my bench in some of those drafts, actually. Salah, Gakpo, Barnes, King, Mateta, Gyökeres, Haaland. So, yeah, King was on my bench in those drafts, but he's definitely worth starting this week. Harvey Barnes wasn't actually talked about too much, but a Newcastle attack against Wolves is viable. I think Barnes is the one I'm least confident about, alongside Joachim Andersen in your starting 11. Do you have to Senesi or Munoz? I have Richards, by the way. Difficult one. I mean, in isolation, Munoz is better, but he's also 1 million more expensive, and you've got Chris Richards. So that makes it a bit challenging. I'm going to say Senesi. What to do with Sarr to Kudus, or Xavi Simons? I'd sell Sarr. You can also look at Enzo Fernandez. Antoine Semenyo is my recommendation, but if you can't afford it, I think Kudus is the safest pick. Should I sell Rodgers and Watkins? What should I do? Well, going into this week, I talked about selling one of them if you had a double up, but I am also backing them to bounce back against Everton, and they've got the fixtures over the next 4. They are still in the top 4, actually, in that time frame. I'm going to say keep Watkins for sure. Maybe consider selling Rodgers, but it also depends on your money available. Who can you go to? I'd probably keep both of them for now, and if they're still looking terrible, sell Rodgers. I'm starting all of Palmer, Enzo, Guiu, Joao Pedro, and Salah captain. No transfer to make. Wow, that's interesting. I mean, you'd expect one of Palmer or Guiu to not start the game at least, and Palmer might not even be in the squad at all. But yeah, I was more bullish on Palmer's starting chances before yesterday. The press conference has put me off, but sometimes these managers can sell you dreams or get you worried for nothing. Paredes says, first on the bench, Reinildo or Diouf? I'd say Sunderland have a better chance of a clean sheet, but only just. I mean, in my predictions, I've gone for 3-1 Crystal Palace and 2-2 Tottenham, West Ham. I'm going to say Diouf for the attacking potential. Watkins' best change. Short term is Ekitike. Long term, I'm going to say Mateta. Ivanosen would be up there. I like Gyökeres, but that's more of a Game Week 7 sort of transfer. Well, global betting tips. There is a wildcard squad on my channel, which I made over a week ago. That's still relevant. I think all those players are still injury-free. What I'll probably do now, since I'm getting a lot of questions about wildcards and free hits, and remember, I have made those videos already, so I'm not going to comment on them too much since the content has been done already. But let's go to fpl.team and let's load up the wildcard squad. Okay. So now it says that I'm 0.1 million over budget. That wasn't the case when I made the video, so I think things have changed there. And let's go to the free hit squad as well. Just have that ready for the people asking. So let's do a bit of tinkering here. So with the wild cards, Sanchez in goal, Van Dijk, Munoz, Gabriel, Gakpo, Semenyo, Bruno Fernandes, Kudus, Mateta, Haaland, Joao Pedro, Dubravka, King, Anderson, Senesi. I think that's kind of a rough sort of wildcard squad. Looks pretty decent though. If you can't afford this team, you could just do Munoz to Lacroix. Keep it simple, and you've still got a lot of squad depth there. One of the main issues you will have with this team is actually having a lot of benching headaches. You know, this week you've got Kings, Anderson, and Senesi. That is bench boostable. I think Dubravka's the only one that lets it down, but that could be a slight concern, actually. But yeah, I do like this sort of structure. I'd go for something like this on the wild card. If you have the funds, you can go for Munoz, of course, in that defensive line. With the free hit, I think Marmoush is quite clearly a sell now. I would do something like this. Okay, so let's put Erling Haaland in here. Getting rid of Salah would be a bold call, I think, but maybe worth consideration. So yeah, Pope in goal, Van Dijk, Munoz, Gabriel. Yeah, let's try something a little bit different. This could definitely backfire incredibly. Joao Pedro, Mateta, 2.3 in the bank. I mean, you could even go for Fernandes here if you wanted to. It's not a terrible shout. I just think Kudus against West Ham, I would favour him over Semenyo this week. Long term, though, don't even overthink it. Go for Semenyo all day long. But for this week, it's a different story. There was another wildcard draft I talked about where I think I had 4 defenders and I went quite cheap in the midfield. So let's see if I can get this squad. Give me a second. Because I did show multiple drafts in that video. I think it's probably worth revisiting that. Because there's one that I'd lean towards to now, obviously with some of the injury news like Marmoush as well. Okay, yeah, and starting King. Okay, I think I know what it is then. Okay, so we might be a bit tight on budget with this, but let's go back to Salah. Let's also... one of Matoma or Kudus would have to make way. Matoma has a great record against Bournemouth. That's why he's in this team, for those that are wondering what the hell is he doing there. So one of those two will drop down. It's down to your personal preference. We'll kick Matoma out for now. We'll go to Dewsbury Hall. Start Josh King. And I'm also going to downgrade Joao Pedro to a cheap forward. It doesn't really matter. I'm going for Krupi Jr. And we can then use the funds. Yeah. We can then go to Lacroix and double up on Palace defensively. You could even go for a double up in Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle defensively, but bear in mind with Liverpool, you would have to sell one of those attackers or Van Dijk. But I'm going to go for this. And then we are going to bench Krupi Jr. Then you captain one of Salah or Haaland. And the algorithm would favour Erling Haaland. No, sorry. No, I can't even speak. Can't even think. It would favour Mohamed Salah ever so slightly. And we can have this. So that looks pretty decent in my opinion. If you've got enough funds, you could even upgrade Goodmanson to Anderson, but ultimately he would sit on your bench in this sort of team. With Kudus, could you go to Matoma? Yes, you certainly can. Other midfielders to consider, maybe Harvey Barnes for some people, if you're favouring Newcastle. That could be decent, and the expected points does go up even higher. So this is kind of a rough sort of free hit team as well, for those that are asking. And this, what you see now, is the updated wildcard team essentially. But really all I've done is offer a solution for those that can't afford it anymore and go from Munoz to Lacroix. That's basically it. So yeah, those videos still aged well, except for the Marmoush pick, of course, in the free hit. And that was really just to cover Man City. In one of the drafts, I covered multiple teams in that video. So yeah, you're well prepared for the upcoming deadline. Let me now go back to my squad, and I need to make some transfers, I think. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. But a lot of you are still voting for Mateta. He is leading this poll with 42%. And yeah, I think that's not a bad shout whatsoever. Barnes will start. Gordon will play versus Barcelona. Well, Gordon is suspended anyway until Game Week 6. I think Harvey Barnes will start. I agree with you. In, Salah, Mateta, out, Wirtz and Haaland. Not for me. I like the transfers in, but I do back Wirtz and Haaland this week. They're both in my top 5 captaincy options. I mean, to be fair, so are Salah, Mateta, but I don't think it's worth chopping and changing them right now. One transfer is worth the hit to deal with the issues I have. Wood, Sarr, Kelleher, Williams. Look, as bad as Brentford are defensively, I wouldn't prioritise that as a transfer. Especially if you've got Dubravka as well. I know he's facing Liverpool, but yeah, ultimately, just keep your goalkeeper for now and focus on the more important positions. Williams is fine for the next 3 game weeks, so just keep him on bench. So really your priority would be Sarr, in my opinion. Hi Dylan, who would you have on free hit? Look, I like Semenyo a lot in FPL this season, and I'm looking to buy him in for my squad. But for this week against Brighton, I'm less keen on him. So I'd actually rather punt on Madueke, personally, and he has been very sharp recently for club and country. Livramento would be an essential for a free hit this game week. I don't think he's essential though, and remember I'm covering Nick Pope and Newcastle defensively that way, so Livramento hasn't blanked so far this season. He's a good pick, and he was in one of my free hit drafts if you check out that video, but he's not essential. Wildcard, no Salah? Possibility, but I think in a couple of weeks' time, people will shift towards Haaland, especially from Game Week 6. That's Water League, not FPL League, says Twisted Parky. I wonder what that's in reference to. Probably a message just above you, but I don't see it right now. Maybe I can have a look soon. Oh, right. I think maybe there are some trollings in the chat. Thanks to the moderators for dealing with the spamming. Have you used any chips yet? No, thankfully. Thankfully. I've still got that to lean back on. But yeah, it's time to bounce back and yeah, build some momentum because it has been a poor start to the season. I'm on wildcard. Check out my wildcard video, and you saw just a few minutes ago a sort of updated wildcard draft as well. So yeah, I think it's probably worth going into that as well. I'm actually planning to keep Guiu as my 3rd Chelsea and sell Palmer though. The thing is, I think Palmer will start against Bayern, maybe get minutes this week or later tonight. And yeah, I think Palmer could start by game week 5 or 6, but ultimately it's too much money to not have that certainty that he's going to start. So I get that. Should I sell Rodgers or Dewsbury Hall for Semenyo? This might be an unpopular opinion. I'd keep them for now and buy Semenyo next week. And in that case, you can buy him for Rodgers. But yeah, in the case of Aston Villa, I think they could bounce back this week. I really feel that way. If you don't have the transfers this week to fix your team, would you free hit or wildcard? It depends on these issues. Are they long-term? Are they just for 1 week only? I'd rather free hit on paper, but it depends on the squad and also if these issues are long-term or short-term. Morning, Twister Parky. Bench 2, Luca Dean, Mark Guiu, Ndoye, and Ndai. I'm going to say Ndoye on the bench and Mark Guiu. So I'm going to start... Well, this is maybe unpopular, and also you've got a clash this way. Luca Dean and Ndai. There is a chance that Ndai doesn't play anyway, and you could have Ndoye first on your bench there. Should I sell Rodgers? No, sorry, I covered that. Try not to repeat it, please. Thank you to Mitra for the super chat. Johnson or Rodgers start 1. I'm going to say Rodgers. In the case of Johnson, I've got a slight doubt about whether he starts or not, but he is in my predicted 11, which I showed you earlier. But I would start Morgan Rodgers this week. Yes, Gary, thank you for the 40-minute warning. I probably need that because, yeah, I lose track of time. Well, sometimes. When it comes to answering questions, maybe I do. But yeah, very soon I'll be making a transfer. I think one of Munoz, Lacroix, or Mateta will come in. And of course, if I do buy the cheaper options in Mateta and Lacroix, retrospectively, and then, yeah, that will give me enough funds for Semenyo in the long term, which is my ultimate midfielder replacement for Ismaila Sarr. Would it make sense for me to do Moreno to Munoz and then take a -4 for Semenyo to Sarr? Yes, it does. One thing I'm considering for myself, and this might also, you know, help you a little bit, is I am inclined to buy Semenyo next week for free as opposed to taking a -4 this week. Best time to free hit if you own Haaland. Game week 5 could be a good one. When he faces Arsenal away, he could definitely score at the Emirates. He's done it before, but yeah, I think Arsenal would be favourites in that match. So maybe Game week 5 would be one of the immediate short-term suggestions. Have Borro, Agbadou, Diouf, Murillo, Estevan defence suggestions. I'm not going to lie, that defence does not look good at all this week. I would make a transfer. Borro's fine. The rest is where I would have a lot of concerns. I tried to buy Lacroix, maybe Senesi. If you can buy those two this week, and they'd be long-term options, they can get Defcon consistently. Yoko Anderson isn't too shabby either. Livramento, all of them should be under consideration. But I would favour a Palace defender and Senesi from Bournemouth. Thoughts on Gyökeres? I bought him in. I like him this week. He's 9th in my Captaincy list. The problem is Man City and Newcastle over the next 3. But oddly enough, I think Newcastle is the toughest game for Arsenal from an attacking perspective. I think the Toon will do what they usually do against Arsenal nowadays, and that's sit back and, kind of suck Arsenal in and hit them on the break. So, yeah, oddly enough, I think Gyökeres might have more chances against City than against Newcastle. But long term, that's a good pick. Hey, Dylan, start Wood or Agbadou? Wood. Hey, Dylan, good morning. Should I sell Diouf or Dorgu to bring in Lacroix or just roll this week? I'd still sell Dorgu, but of course he should start this weekend with Diogo Dalot being out. And I think Lacroix is a good long-term option anyway. Defcon potential, clean sheets and all that jazz. Yes, Awale, there is still time, over half an hour left, but very soon I'll be locking in my final move. Thoughts on Harvey Elliott as a proper differential or too early? Yeah, I think it is a little bit too early. Yeah. I believe he will start, by the way. So that is a change from yesterday's lineups video. I think Harvey Elliott will get the nod on the right-hand side. I did yesterday, Safir, but I'm in two minds about it. And Spurs could start Simmons and Johnson simultaneously and then drop one of Bentancur, Pape Mate Sarr, or Paulinho. But I've gone for a 4-3-3, and I think Johnson is a little bit more likely. My prediction is for Xavi Simmons to start in the Champions League against Villarreal. I'd pick Johnson over Rodgers personally, says Ahmad. Fair enough. I feel a bit differently. Start Sells or Dubravka? Sells. Thoughts on Cher? Should be on pens. Well, I think they can keep a clean sheet against Wolves. I've gone for 2-0 Newcastle. You've got the potential penalties there as well. He can score from set pieces, and he's also got that long-distance strike in him. I think Cher's fine. Hi, Dylan. Gay or Munoz? Munoz for sure. Best Cunha replacement got 10.4. Bruno Fernandes or Semenyo? Hey Dylan, hope you're good. Play Bruno and Anderson or transfer Sarr out. Got 7.3 to spend if Sarr leaves. Annoying because I'd like Semenyo. Yeah, I'm also in a similar boat to you. The thing with Semenyo, though, is I'd be more keen on him long term, but not for this week. Against Brighton, I think he could blank in Game Week 4. But, yeah, if you can't find a way to buy Semenyo next week, for example, then you could look at Enzo Fernandez or Kudus at a similar price tag to Sarr. Hey Dylan, what's your view on Pino? I think he'll start this weekend. Once Ismaila Sarr is back, though, we could see rotation there, and ultimately Yeremy Pino could still be a starter, by the way, on the left-hand side with Kamada dropping deeper or out of the starting 11. But I think that's worth a punt, yeah, especially against Sunderland. Stevo says, hi mate, who to play, who to bench? Dorgu Murillo? I'm going to say Murillo. Reinders, Dewsbury Hall. Close one. I'm going to say Reinders. Should I change Ndai to Semenyo? I got the funds already. I'm going to say no. But if you have a good feeling about it, back your gut. I just don't think Semenyo will score this week. I think you actually blank, but I do like him long term. So I have answered hundreds of questions and covered different graphics and provided all the news you need for Game Week 4. Drop a like on this stream. Let's get it to over 200. And by the end, if we reach that goal, I'll be gifting 5 more memberships. I did that already earlier in this stream, and there'll be 5 more headed your way. You'll get early access to my videos, priority reply to comments, and many other perks in the process. They can be found in the description. And there's also a feature now on YouTube called Hype. So make sure to check it out. If you want to hype my videos, feel free to do so, and we'll see what the hype is about. Start in Doi, Murillo, or Estev. Yeah, Larson is out. I would start in Doi from those three. Would you transfer Sells out? I'd keep him for now. He might be a sell by game week 7, but yeah, he's definitely a hold with Sunderland and Burnley on the horizon. Bruno to Semenyo for a -4? No. No chance. In fact, I think Bruno is a better option this week, so I wouldn't do that. In an ideal world, and I talked about this in my wildcard video, I'd have both Semenyo and Fernandes in that position. Yeah, I talked about this earlier. Saliba is in contention to play, so he could start in the early kickoff today. In the case of Cole Palmer, he has been in training, but I think after Enzo Maresca's comments yesterday, I would be very doubtful about him starting the game. But I think getting minutes off the bench is possible, but I'd be less convinced about Palmer. I have put Mosquera in my starting 11, but that's because I feel Saliba shouldn't be rushed back in, and Mosquera can do a really good job, as he showed at Anfield. So yeah, with Saliba, he could even be available. Well, he is available now, and he could even start in a couple of hours. Hey Dylan, what's your view on keeping Palmer? It's still a viable option, but he's so expensive, and ultimately you need him to start in the next week or so because 10.4 million for someone who's not playing is just too much money. Should I sell Rodgers to Semenyo or Wood to Mateta? Long term, I think the best option is Rodgers to Semenyo. Best mid-long term, I mean, apart from Salah, Palmer when he's fit, and Saka, I'm going to say Bruno Fernandes. Start Van der Ven or Senesi. I've gone for 1-1 in the Bournemouth game and 2-2 in the Spurs game. So then it comes down to DEFCON, I guess, and ultimately you would get a -1 for Spurs if they concede twice. I'm going to say Senesi. Start or bench Palmer? I'd start him if you have him, but it's a tricky situation to be in. Just the Parky puts a squad, 5.1, or Mateta and Salah sold. So yeah, sell Verts and Watkins for Haaland and a 5.1 mid, which would probably be Dewsbury Hall or King. It's a close one, and I was asked something similar earlier. I would lean towards holding Verts and Watkins for now, but I get why you want to buy Erling Haaland, actually. Should I transfer Wood to Mateta, Gimmick 6 wildcard then? You don't need to do that, though, because Chris Wood faces Sunderland and Burnley over the next 3. The issue now lies with the new manager, and I think Chris Wood will become less appealing of an FPL option as a result, because his record under Nuno was incredible. Only Erling Haaland scored more Premier League goals than him. I'm looking at that transfer myself, but that's for a number of reasons. The main one is to have enough money to buy Semenyo, which I'm looking to do next week, and also to target this Sunderland fixture now and have a guaranteed starter almost in Mateta, as opposed to Chris Wood, who might not even start against Arsenal. And yeah, he might even be a potential concern in the coming weeks. But if you're backing Chris Wood to start over the next 3, I'd keep him. It all depends on your team situation as well. Bruno or Salah to captain? Well, Salah is minimum second in my Captaincy list. I have had him first throughout all of my graphics. Bruno Fernandes is 10th. They're both good options. I would lean towards Salah. Truth says Sarr and Strand Larsen to Semenyo and Gyökeres for a -4. I'm going to say yes. Good transfers. I'm not wildcarding right now, Adam. Check out that wildcard video. Even a few minutes ago, it might have been 10-20 minutes at this stage, I showed an updated wildcard squad as well for those that can't afford the previous one, and that's basically doing Munoz to Lacroix. So it's all in that video. Sell one of Senesi or Van der Ven for Anderson. Why would you sell Senesi? It makes no sense in my opinion. I don't think you need to sell them, to be honest. Spurs have some of the best fixtures over the next 4 game weeks. Whilst I don't expect many clean sheets, I don't think it's worth selling him to Joachim Andersen. And to be honest with you, I think Leeds will score against Fulham, so I wouldn't be buying in Andersen at the expense of Senesi or Van der Ven. Thank you, Lorcan, and the best of luck to you as well. Start Konsa or Frimpong? Probably Konsa, because with Frimpong, I don't think he'll start. If you feel differently, then back your gut, and I think Frimpong could be a nice punt. Yeah, it's Munoz for me, Raja. Upgrade Rangers to Gakpo. Yeah, short term that looks good. Can you tell us one premium defender, midfielder and forward that isn't Salah and Haaland? Munoz, Bruno Fernandes, and Erling Haaland, yeah, no. I mean, if you technically think about it, the only premium forwards are Isak and Haaland. I'm not going to recommend Isak right now, so it's probably Ekitike. Short term. He's basically at that sort of premium price tag, so yeah, I'd say Ekitike. Should I do Watkins to Gyökeres on a free transfer? I would say no. I think Watkins is worth holding on to still. It's the ultimate test of patience. I captained him in Game Week 2, so yeah, with that long-term history I've got with Watkins FPL-wise, I need him to do well. I'm backing him. He needs to repay the faith, and I think he will in the next couple of matches. Dylan, should I get Senesi or Anderson long-term option? Senesi. Oh yeah, fair enough, Twister Park. You've got Dewsbury Hall already. Well, it would be King, right? In that Haaland-King situation. I'd rather just keep what you have for now. Is Stev to Senesi, or should I roll? I have Sarr, but planning to wait. It depends who you're starting in your defensive line. If you have to start Stev this week, I'd avoid that and buy Senesi. Otherwise, you could afford to wait until Game Week 5. Is it worth for -4 Van der Ven over Senesi? No. To make it clear, I think Senesi is the better pick. Would I take a hit to buy him in? No. Diouf or Williams who to start? It would be Diouf. Triple captain on Salah. It's still a great option. I'm not telling people to not do it, but he's also got 1 goal and 2 assists in 10 matches against Burnley. That's a pretty underwhelming record in my opinion, but he could certainly improve those numbers after tomorrow. Will Barnes start? Yeah, I think so. But I wasn't aware that his missus had a baby. There's always something that happens and it makes your predicted lineups look like an absolute fool. Thank you, Raja, and the best of luck to you as well. Munoz or Gabriel? For this week, it would be Munoz. This new Premier League app is absolute bollocks. It keeps logging me out and it takes a while to even log back in. I agree with you. I said this from the beginning. If you watch my Game Week 1 stream and stuff like that, I've been talking about this for several weeks now. It even happens on the website. It's not just an app issue. I don't know what they've done with the UI, but it somehow causes issues with logging in, out constantly. And I don't think the 2-factor authentication even works at the moment. So I don't know what's happening. Gay or Lacroix? Lacroix. Dewsbury Hall or King to start this game week? King. Should I do Watkins to Gyökeres as covered earlier? I'd say no. Guys, subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Awale. Much appreciated. And in this poll, Mateta is still winning. 41% of the votes. Murillo to Lacroix is now third. The hit for Semenyo is second with almost a quarter of the votes in total. Murillo to Munoz is last. But yeah, I'm going to make a transfer here. And yeah, it basically comes down to Lacroix or Mateta. And I either sell Murillo or Chris Wood. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Who would you buy? And remember, this is to give me enough funds to then sell Ismaila Sarr to Antoine Semenyo in Game Week 5. So just to make it clear, I've got 0.2 million, I need 0.2 million to buy Semenyo for Sarr. And that's where selling Chris Wood to Mateta or Murillo to Lacroix comes in handy. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Say it in the comments there. Who would you go for? And vote in the poll as well. Drop a like on the stream, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and if you are a patron or member, you can watch my latest draft for UCL Fantasy. That will be published tomorrow, and in the coming days, there will be my team selection for the first match day of the Champions League. And on Tuesday, yes, there's another deadline stream, but for the Champions League this time round, and there could even be a reaction tonight or tomorrow for Fantasy Premier League as well. There's another super chat in the building. Let me just get to that. Thank you very much. Let me just get this up. From Anish. Hey Dylan, on wildcard, Raya, Van Dijk, Lacroix, Chalobah, Salah captain, Gakpo, Rogers, Kudus, Semenyo, Mateta, Dubravka, Senesi, Wood, Goodmanson. Want to do bench boost in Game Week 5. Any thoughts? I think Chris Wood is still a good option over the next 3 game weeks. And I'm not saying he's suddenly not going to start anymore for Forest, but it is a slight possibility. And especially for today, I mean, you've benched him anyway, so it's not a big concern. But I think long term, I would have some slight doubts about Chris Wood. You might even consider Ivanoson instead. Waldemar would be a punt at 7 million. I like your defensive line. Even Chalobah. I think that's absolutely reasonable. Tosin Adarabioyo at 4.5 could also be considered. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of Kudus, but the fixtures are there. I think he could score this weekend against West Ham, but long term he's not going to score too many goals. The rest is absolutely reasonable. I think they're all good picks, but I'd just be slightly concerned. You've also got Rodgers in there still, which is very interesting. As much as I think he's a hold for those that have him, on a wild card, I would be tempted to axe him, actually. Something I would consider as well is finding enough money to buy Bruno Fernandes in the midfield, ideally at the expense of Rodgers, but in order to do that, you would probably have to make another move, which could even include Chris Wood to a cheaper striker, for example. But yeah, overall, I like the look of the squad, and you are making a few different calls in there, like keeping Wood and Rodgers on the wild card, which are still decent picks on paper. The new Prem app didn't say my finish from FPL Challenge last year either, and I came 5th in Australia, 500 and something global. Yeah, I'm not even sure what's happening there, but as long as you can see it on the website and you've got receipts, then you're all good there as well. Hey Dylan, hope you're doing well. Yes, Sydney, it's all good. Thank you very much. -4 Richarlison to Mateta or Ivanosen. I'm not sure if it's worth a -4 hit, to be honest. I would probably go for keeping Richarlison for now. Wirtz or Gakpo. For this week, I have a slight preference for Wirtz. Long term, it's still going to be Gakpo for me. And let's just say I'm happy that I went for Gakpo from the beginning of the season. I'd go Lacroix and Semenyo next week personally, says Harrison James. The problem with that, though, is with Lacroix facing West Ham away and Murillo having that plum fixture, I'd be less tempted to make that transfer specifically in Gameweek 5. But it's a good suggestion that you're making. I'm not saying it's a bad one, but that would kind of be my thinking going into the next deadline. Should I go for Wirtz or Semenyo? This week, Wirtz, long-term Semenyo, so it all depends on what you're looking for, but the best asset overall is Semenyo. Which third midfielder would you go for in a free hit other than Salah and Gakpo? Apart from Wirtz, I would be looking at... It's a good question. I mean, Bruno Fernandes is an option. Kudus, Mitoma would be quite underrated, actually. I prefer him over Semenyo this week. I think King is also quite decent at 4.5. Bench one of Semenyo, Kudus or Reinders? Probably Reinders for me. I think Chris Wood will start, but it's not a guarantee. Kudus versus Barnes on the free hit Gameweek 4. It's difficult. I think the algorithm does suggest or prefer Barnes. I'm going to say Kudus. Xavi Simons will play. It's a possibility. It is a possibility. I had him in my lineup yesterday. Today, it's a little bit different. In Gameweek 6, Watkins sold and Wirtz sold for Haaland and 5.1, or sell Mateta and Salah for Haaland with 10 million in the bank. Yeah, looks pretty good overall. I mean, you've already sold them, that's fair enough. I was kind of suggesting keeping them, but buying Haaland and King looks pretty good, in my opinion. Or have you sold them? I'm not even sure, but yeah, good suggestions there, good ideas. I'm still going to say keep Watkins and Wirtz, to be honest, for this week anyway. Anish says Tielemans, or should I do Wood to Thiago, Rodgers to Bruno? Yeah, Wood to Thiago is interesting, and there should be no concerns about Thiago's minutes there. He's also potentially on penalties after Schada's penalty miss, and obviously Thiago took one in Gameweek 1. I wouldn't go for Tielemans right now. He was a good option towards the back end of last season, but I wouldn't go for him at this moment in time. Rodgers to Bruno looks really good. I think the way to do it is Chris Wood to Thiago. Well, it could also be the website easy. The website keeps signing people out and signing them back in and stuff like that. What do you think about Enzo? He was covered as a buy in my Transfers podcast, so I think he's a decent option overall. Salah Rice is a fair. Yeah. 0 big chances though. His XG is like 0.3, but he should definitely inflate those numbers after tomorrow. Munoz or Gay? Munoz. -4 for Semenyo or Mateta. This week is Mateta. Thank you, Awali, for moderating the chat. Gakpo or Semenyo, I don't have verts. I would go for Semenyo long term. If you're looking for a Game Week 4 punt, then Liverpool would definitely be the preference, but it all depends what you're aiming for in your FPL teams. But Semenyo is my priority in the midfield. Verts and Waldemada or Ekitike and Alanga, Barnes on a free hit. I'm going to say Ekitike and Barnes. My captain Gyökeres in the early kickoff and risk ruining my weekend this early. The problem, though, is if you're an Arsenal fan, you're then captaining an Arsenal player. It can either be elation, you're on cloud 9, Arsenal win, Gyökeres scores goals, you get FPL points, or it's the other end. Yeah, it's like one extreme or the other, basically. But Gyökeres is 9th in my captaincy list. He's a solid option. I probably wouldn't go there personally, but it all depends on who you have. Chelsea differential. Well, Enzo Fernandez was a differential when I covered him. He now has over 10% ownership. You're probably looking at Esteval, who's about to start this game, by the way. And don't be surprised to see Tyreek George start up front for Chelsea. Will Gakpo get minutes? Yes. Start Reinders or Dorgu. Reinders, Gakpo or Semenyo, I don't have verts. For this week, I'm going to say Gakpo. Van Dijk or Munoz until Game Week 6. That's a good one. Van Dijk. Keep and die? Yes. Hola Dylan, ¿qué piensas de Palmer? Ayer yo estaba hablando de la posibilidad que va a jugar el partido del principio, pero después de lo que dijo Maresca en la conferencia de prensa, yo creo que va a estar en el banco y quizás tenga minutos como un substitute, pero no creo que va a empezar el partido ahora. Sydney says, which defender would you replace Nuri with? I'm planning on playing my free hit in Game Week 6. I'd say one of Van Dijk or... yeah, well, you already just said it there. You've tripled up on Palace, so you can't go for Munoz. Yeah, probably Van Dijk in that situation. Start Chalobah or Senesi. I've gone for a 2-1 Chelsea win and a 1-1 Bournemouth draw. But Senesi is more likely to get DEFCON. Chalobah is more likely to score goals. It's a close one. I'm going to say Chalobah. Start Anderson or Chris Wood. Is that Joachim Anderson? I'm guessing it's Elliot Anderson. I'm going to say Chris Wood. Fulham differential. Well, Kevin, their new signing, if you're backing him to start. Probably Rodrigo Muniz or Harry Wilson. I'm going to say Rodrigo Muniz. Free transfers, Palmer, Guiu, Williams out for Semenyo, Mateta, Senesi. Yeah, looks good, in my opinion. I like those moves. I'm going to do something similar. I think I could buy Mateta for Chris Wood, and that gives me the funds to buy Antoine Semenyo next week. I think there could be another super chat in the building. There is by Ahmad. Thank you very much. Planning to bring in Haaland in Game Week 6. Who would you sell? Wood, Joao Pedro, or Mateta? Wood has Sunderland in Game Week 6 and Mateta has Liverpool. But Wood's fixtures look a lot worse after. Yeah, that's the concern there if you want to buy Erling Haaland. Yeah, it's a tricky situation. Ultimately, this might not be ideal, but what I would recommend is selling Mateta for 1 week only and then buying him back in Game Week 7 for Chris Wood. I think that's the best way to go about it, but it does use your transfers. From a fixtures perspective, though, I think that's the optimal play. Start Williams or Diouf? Diouf. No, PK, I didn't. I was just answering a question about what I think about Cole Palmer and whether he will start or not. If Wood doesn't start, would Igor Jesus start going forward? But there's also Kalimwendo to think about. That's the problem. I just think Chris Wood is less secure now with Nuno not in the club anymore. So that's one of my main reasons why I highlighted him as a potential concern in your wildcard squad. Not necessarily Cloud. I mean, some websites and sources have Xavi Simons in the lineup. It is almost 50-50 though. My prediction now is that Johnson will start on the left. Spurs will keep a sort of consistent 11 for now, but in the Champions League we'll see Xavi Simons start for the first time, and it's also a home fixture there against Villarreal. Yeah, exactly 15 minutes. Now 13, less lock and load. Yeah, Twisted Parky, but ultimately I might just get off them anyway. Bench Wood or Dewsbury Hall? I would bench Chris Wood this week. Thoughts on Sarr to Paqueta? He's on penalties, 5.9 million, good form. It's not a bad pick whatsoever. I think that's one of the better choices to replace Ismail Assar, actually. Ideally, it's Semenyo, though, and if you have the funds, that'll be my long-term pick. Start Mark Guiu or Chris Wood. It's probably Chris Wood still. Keep Johnson or Semenyo for a hit. I keep Johnson for now and buy Semenyo next week for free. Harrison James puts his team. Best of luck, Dylan and chat. So King first on the bench. Salah captain. Okay. Good team. Yeah, not many complaints from me, actually. I think that's looking quite solid. So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Start Mark Guiu? I don't think so. Now, look, there is a chance he does get the nod, but even for the Spanish under-21 side, he didn't start any games, so it'd be a big jump if he went from that to starting games for Chelsea. Start who, Van der Ven or Senesi? I'd go for Senesi here. And Dewsbury Hall or Reinders, this is close. I would lean towards Reinders. Does it show for others free additional transfers even when you confirm? Yeah, I'm not sure if I follow. Maybe there's a glitch in the FPL Apple website, but yeah, if anyone does experience that, let Zoromino know. Need a midfielder under 7.2. Yeah, I think Paqueta's fine. There's also Enzo Fernandez to think about, and Kudus. Those would be three of the best ones if you're looking for a Sarr replacement. Sydney says, what would you do if you had Palmer and Pape Sarr was your first sub? I would consider Palmer to Fernandez or Semenyo long-term. The problem with that, though, is Palmer could still start this weekend and start games by Gameweek 5 or 6 at the very latest, so it's a tricky situation to be in. Something else you could consider is Pape Mate Sarr to King or Dewsbury Hall and start them this week. Should I bench Conser for Palmer? I already have a back three of Gay, Romero, and Munoz. Yeah, I probably would do that. To be honest, though, I'd start Conser over Romero, but that's a personal take of mine. Another thing to say to Sydney's question is you could also find a creative solution. For example, you could make a defender transfer and buy Lacroix, for example, and then start him and go for a back four. That's something else to think about. Rodgers for Sarr. Rodgers is a hold in certain situations, but I don't think he's worth buying in. Why still Watkins? He's got the fixtures. I also think he's got the underlying numbers, and Aston Villa have a great record against Everton. Watkins has scored plenty of goals against the Toffees, so I think he's worth holding on to for now. I've also got bigger fires to, put out, mate. I mean, right now, you can see Semenyo in the team. It looks amazing, but that's because that's a proposed transfer. I've got Ismail Assar, who is my priority sell, and I also need to make that possible. I think Chris Wood and Murillo are more on the chopping block than Ollie Watkins at this moment in time. So yeah, I'm going to make a move here. Ismail Assar might stay here for now, but ultimately he will be sold in Gameweek 5 for Antoine Semenyo. And in order to do that, I can sell Chris Wood to Mateta or Murillo to Lacroix. That is what I'm looking at the moment. If we look at the poll I put out on my channel, Murillo to Munoz was the highest voted option. And yes, it's 34%. That's what people are saying. And in second, it was Murillo to Lacroix, and that gives me funds for Semenyo. The third option is hold Murillo and Chris Wood. And in last is buying Mateta. But guess what? If you look at the poll right now, it's the complete opposite. And that's because people have probably seen the context of my squad, and they think the best thing to do is buy Jean-Philippe Mateta. That has 40% of the votes. In second is taking a hit for Semenyo, and in third is buying Lacroix. So the last option is Munoz, despite the fact that on screen in this poll I put out yesterday, that was the clear winner with 34%. So let's now go back to my FPL team and let's start making some transfers. We've got 8 minutes left. Lock in your squads, pick your captain, and make sure your bench is completely set in order. We can't change it like we can in UCL Fantasy. Drop a like on the stream. We're going to try to get to 200. That would be greatly appreciated. And if we do so, I'll be gifting 5 more memberships, and we'll also go on for even longer. We are close to hitting our Super Chat goal as well. We've got 10 minutes to hit that too. And thank you to those that have sent in their contributions, and to all the members and patrons. Enjoy the latest draft for UCL Fantasy. That video is already available to you, and it will be published tomorrow for everybody else. Thank you to Anish once more. We've got another message in the building. How good is Eze now? There is a slight concern about his minutes. He might not even start, and Martinelli could get the nod at left wing. But in my predicted lineup, I've got Eze in there, and I think he's a decent option against Forest. If they play a high line, then yeah, I think Eze could definitely thrive in that sort of scenario. But I don't think Forest will be that naive, and they should keep things quite similar for this game at least, and then implement Ange Postecoglou's tactics in future games. Who to bench in FPL draft? Pope, Sels, Munoz, Cher, Cucurella, Tarkovsky, Udogi, Bruno, Semenyo, Enzo, Johnson, Xavi Simons, Joao Pedro, Mateta, Richarlison. Worth swapping any defenders for Truffert or Diakite? I'll be honest, I think Senesi is my favourite Bournemouth defender, but the other two are certainly viable. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about FPL draft to be fair, so maybe you can't go to Senesi, but you can get another Bournemouth defender, so fair enough. I think that's fine. I'd probably keep things as they are. Tarkovsky can get DEFCON, so can still salvage 3-4 points against Villa quite comfortably. Yeah, I think you've probably ordered things in the correct way. Yeah, Johnson and Xavi Simons is a bit of a concern maybe, but the doggy, I don't think he'll start. It should be Jed Spence, so I'd probably suggest starting one of Truffert or Diakite for the doggy. Actually, that would be my recommendation. Is Moniz and Ekatike a good front two? Yes, but it's very short term. I think you could have some concerns about the minutes in a couple of weeks' time. Reinders to Semenyo? Yes. Long term, that's a great transfer, Nagib, so no problems with that whatsoever. I haven't played UCL Fantasy before. Is it a website game? It does have an app. If you go to the App Store, just type in UEFA Gaming. I think it's called the UEFA Gaming Hub. So you go to that, and it has different games like Predict 6 and stuff like that, but there's also UCL Fantasy. And once the knockout stages begins, you also have like a sort of whole prediction list, and you can, guess the entire bracket actually. So yeah, there is a website, and you just type in UCL Fantasy there and find it, but there's also the UEFA Gaming Hub on the app. Play Senesi or Porro? I would play Pedro Porro. Okay, so it's decision time. There are less than 5 minutes left for the deadline, and now I'm going to make some moves. I bought Chris Wood last week for a -4 here. That was a massive, massive flop, to say the least. And yeah, now it just comes down to Chris Wood to Mateta or getting Lacroix for Murillo. I'll be honest, I think Mateta has the highest ceiling this week. He's ranked quite highly in my captaincy list, but I do like Lacroix and the DEFCON potential in the coming weeks as well. It's a tricky decision, I think, because ultimately Forest assets will still be appealing in Game Weeks 5 and 6 against Burnley and Sunderland. Yeah, ultimately I think it's going to come down to these two players. Selling one of them, boosting my Game Week 4 team a little bit, and then having enough money to buy Semenyo next week. That is my current plan. And yeah, I'll be making a decision in the next minute or so. Start Reece James or Anderson? I'd start Anderson. There's no guarantee that Reece James even starts. Thank you, Anish, for the super chat. Massively appreciated. Richarlison or Colomwani? For the next couple of weeks, it's Richarlison. I would have concerns about that longer term, and my favourite Spurs option for the next couple of months would be Xavi Simons, followed by Kudus. But between the forwards, it is Richarlison at this moment in time. I think he'll start. Captain Mateta or Salah? It would be Salah for me, but Mateta isn't too far behind. Hi Dylan, I want Saka to Wirtz and Nuri to Munoz. Thoughts? I like Wirtz for this week, to be fair, so that could be a nice transfer away from the template. I wouldn't say it's a differential because ultimately his ownership is still in the double-digit figures, but people are looking at selling Wirtz as opposed to buying him, so that's a different strategy. And Nuri to Munoz is a great transfer. I like that. Start Rodgers or Reinders? I'd go for Rodgers. Dylan, to have Grealish or Kudus in the wildcard team, I would say probably Kudus. Yeah, it's going to be Kudus for me. Okay, so did Wood to Mateta, says Gary. I'm looking at it myself, to be honest. I am looking at it. It's a very close call. I'm not sure, Kira Tex. I have got him in my starting 11, but there's no guarantee. I just don't know enough about the injury. It's a knock. That's pretty much all we have to it. Yeah, any spam questions aren't going to be answered. Sorry, but yeah, that's not the way to get things answered. There's other people also waiting. Hey, mate, should I go for Enzo, Grealish, Kudus in the midfield? I'm going to say... I like Kudus this week, to be fair. I do like Kudus. And yeah, that was the question that was getting spammed, actually. I just realized that. Start 3 of Murillo, Anderson, Rodon, Dorgu, Porro. Yeah, it'd be Budro, Porro, Anderson, and then it's probably Rodon, I guess. I'm less convinced about the third one. But yeah, now we've got a minute and a half left. I am going to make a transfer. It's either Murillo or Chris Wood. I might as well just flip a coin at this point. That's the way things are looking like at the moment. But yeah, I think I'm going to go for... I think Murillo's going to make way for me. I'm going to stick to what I said before and buy Lacroix and potentially start a back 4. This week, if Ndai misses out, I've got Chris Wood coming off the bench. I mean, I'm trying to think also, because if I buy Mateta for Chris Wood, it'd be Murillo coming off the bench. Yeah, I'm going to stick with this. My original transfer plans from before, I'm going to buy Lacroix, who I do like in the long term. And hopefully this doesn't sign me out. Okay. Let's make sure Lacroix is in the starting 11. So this is all locked in. Yeah, we've got enough time. It's all good. Okay, so this is my final team. It's basically what I talked about in my team selection. I was really considering Mateta, and I do like him, but I'll give Chris Wood a chance. I literally just bought him in for a -4 hit anyway. So Sanchez in goal, a back 4 of Konsa, Pedro Porro, Gabriel, and Lacroix. Salah as my captain, Gakpo, Reinders, and Ndai, who could miss out this week. Watkins and Joao Pedro up front, and a bench of Dubravka, Chris Wood, Reynildo Mandava, and Ismail Assar. So, if needed, I will have Chris Wood coming in. And yeah, I think that is pretty much set. It does make sense. I'm quite happy with it overall. And next week, you might be thinking, why did you just do that? I can buy Antoine Semenyo for Ismail Assar. I might even do that tonight, but I think the best thing to do is wait a couple of days and just hope that Sarr doesn't go down in price and Semenyo doesn't go up. So I have gone for that in the end. I just think long term, that is going to be the best thing to do. Is Pickford good this game week? I think Pickford is a decent option. I do think Villa will score though, and I have gone for a 2-1 Villa win, to be fair. But if you are basing it off what's happened so far this season, then yeah, I think Pickford is always going to be a decent choice. Yeah, Sunderland are no mugs. I've never said that, to be honest, but I just think Palace would be the favourites, and Lacroix is a long-term option. The main reason to buying him is having the DEFCON potential and also having enough funds to buy Semenyo in the midfield. What is the reason to move out of Wood? Well, I've got him in the end. I haven't sold him just yet, but I think the main concern is he might not start against Arsenal in the early kickoff, and there's no guarantee he starts against Burnley and Sunderland with a new manager. But I think he is still first choice, and that's what I'll be hoping for going into Gameweek 5. There's always a few, you know, kind of concerns when it comes to a new manager coming in. Ekitike or Van Dijk on a free hit, it's definitely Ekitike for me. Yeah, last minute transfer. Well, I had this in mind for several days and stuff like that, but I also considered my other avenues, and yeah, as usual, I was answering questions and almost left it until the very end. Let's get to 200 likes, and then I'll be gifting 5 more memberships, and I'll be going on for a little bit longer, but yeah, after this, I'll be having a little break. Rodgers or Newcastle mid? For this week, it would be a Newcastle mid, yeah. Bench boost of Dubravka, Reinders, Van der Ven, and Goodmanson. Interesting. I'd say no. It's not a terrible bench, but I think there will be better opportunities very soon. Reynildo or Anderson? Joachim Anderson this week. It's not showing on your screen. Oh yeah, that was said a few minutes ago. So yeah, don't worry. It was all done. I did buy Lacroix in the end. Thank you to the moderators, by the way. I appreciate it. For those asking about leaks, I haven't seen any leaks this morning, but then again, I haven't checked Twitter since going live, so that also might not help too much. But if you have seen anything, be sure to let me know. And yeah, we will get the Arsenal and Forest lineups in the next 15 minutes. So yeah, Reynate Nuri will be out for around 5 weeks of an ankle injury. That was officially confirmed a few hours ago. But yeah, I don't think there are any updates per se or any leaks. Dango versus Xavi versus Enzo versus Paqueta, 1 week punt. Well, 1 week punt is difficult. I don't think it'd be Dango, personally. Yeah, if we're talking about punt, it's going to be Xavi Simons, but there's no guarantee he starts. Went for my gut. I think considered going with my Gameweek 6 wildcard plan, so went Sarr and Rodgers to Gakpo and Paqueta for a -4. Interesting. I think Rodgers was still worth keeping in this situation because you took a -4 hit and sold him, but look, you're buying Gakpo and Paqueta. They're good transfers in. They've been in great form, and Gakpo has such a high ceiling against Burnley. Johan says, Guiu, Palmer, Ndiaye to Mateta, Semenyo, Paqueta, or to Mateta, Semenyo, and Senesi. Don't want double Palace defense. Yeah, I get that. I also wouldn't want a double up Palace defensively long term. Yeah, my preference would be Mateta, Semenyo, and Senesi, I think. Dubravka or Sells, I've said this multiple times, Truth, throughout the stream. I said Sells all day long. Ultimately, I think both of them will blank, but Sells is more likely to keep a clean sheet. Barnes or Elanga? Barnes, not much in it. Dewsbury Hall or Paqueta for a wildcard team? That is close. That is quite close, to be honest. Probably Paqueta, actually. I think Reece James will start Arthur. It's not guaranteed, though. And if we're talking about right back, I think it's more likely that Gusto will play in that position. So I'm going to let this play out. And yeah, ultimately, it's impossible to get all of these spots on. There's always some late injury or something that happens. There's also, new signings to think about, and managers will have their own reasonings. There's training sessions that we don't have full access to, but these are the lineups I've gone for all 20 Premier League clubs. With Chelsea, my prediction is for James to start in the midfield alongside Caicedo, which pushes Enzo Fernandez further forward, and then Gusto would be the right back. Joao Pedro would play up front, but all the South American players are a doubt for the Blues, so even that isn't guaranteed. With Crystal Palace, I've gone for this sort of setup. I think that's how they'll line up. With Everton, Ndiaye will be a massive doubt. Even Mikolenko could miss out, and we could see Garner as the left back, and then Eric Bonham in the midfield, and one of Alcaraz, Dibbling, or McNeil on the right-hand side, should Ndiaye be ruled out there for Gameweek 4. With Fulham as well, Robinson could start a left back and Sessegnon as the right winger. There's also Kevin, who could start as a left winger there for Fulham. So ultimately, they have a lot of options, but that's what I've gone for in that Leeds fixture. And speaking of which, I have gone for this sort of team for Leeds United. Perry is out for the next 2 game weeks, and Nemecha is a doubt, so Calvert-Lewin could get his first Leeds start. Liverpool could go for Conor Bradley at right back, but there's also Szoboszlai and Frimpong, who is now available. But I think Bradley should get some minutes under his belt in this plum fixture against Burnley, and I think the Reds will win quite handsomely in the end. With Manchester City, I think Gvardiol could enter that starting 11 with Kusanov as the left back. I think he's not yellow flagged anymore, actually, in Kusanov, so that could be something else worth bearing in mind. I'm going to double check that, actually, just in case. There's so many yellow flags and stuff to keep track of. I think over the last day or two, I've been adding and removing flags for fun. Yeah, Kusanov is no longer yellow flagged. It's worth mentioning that as well, but ultimately it doesn't really make much of a difference. He is in my predicted lineup. What is wrong with the app, by the way? It just changed my formation live from a 3-4-3 to a 4-4-2. What is actually happening with this app? That's kind of weird. Hopefully that's not a sign of my team getting tinkered with by FPL headquarters, because I did make things, I made my transfer and sub on time, but it is what it is. With Man City, I've also gone for Bob, Haaland and Doku. Foden is another possible starter in the attacking areas. With Man United, I think we could see Bruno Fernandes a bit further forward and Mainu alongside Casemiro following the news of Cunha and Mason Mount missing the Manchester derby. With Newcastle, I have gone for Trippier and Livramento as the fullbacks, but Lewis Hall should get some starts eventually, and I think Walter Marder will make his Premier League debut against Wolves. Visser is injured, and he won't be available at the moment. Barnes and Elanga on the wings is also quite set, and Jolinton is back. With Nottingham Forest, it isn't guaranteed, but I've gone for Chris Wood up front. I think his game was played on the Tuesday. There are, 25, 30-hour flights, I think, from New Zealand to the UK. Let's not forget he's also going to be travelling in first class or in a private jet. So, yeah, it won't be as bad for him maybe, but ultimately Burnley and Sunderland over the next three. That's why I've kept Chris Wood. I've sold Murillo in the end. Let's see how that ages overall. Savona is my predicted right back there for Forest. And for Sunderland, I've gone for an unchanged side from the one that beat Brentford 2-1 back in Gameweek 3. And for Tottenham Hotspur, I'm quite conflicted about Xavi Simons. He could start for the first time, but my prediction at the moment is that Xavi Simons will come off the bench and make his first start in the Champions League against Villarreal for Tottenham Hotspur. And for West Ham, I've gone for this 4-2-3-1 formation. We could even see one of Bowen or Paqueta start as the striker and Wilson come on as a substitute, but I've gone for this starting 11 for the Hammers. And for Wolves, Strand Larsen is out, so I've gone for Hwang Hee-chan up front. And I would have some slight doubts about certain positions. We could even see their new signing, Krejci, start as a centre-back, and also Rodrigo Gomez as a right wing-back. He has scored in the last 2 games for Wolves, but I've gone for Chichauna at this moment in time, and that completes all the lineups for Game Week 4. Let's also take a look at my predictions for the scorelines. And that's what I've kind of landed on. Arsenal 2, Forest 0, Bournemouth 1, Brighton 1, Crystal Palace 3, Sunderland 1. And from that perspective, maybe Mateta was the right call this week. Everton 1, Aston Villa 2, Fulham 2, Leeds United 1, Newcastle 2, Wolves 0, West Ham 2, Tottenham 2, Brentford 1, Chelsea 2, Burnley 0, Liverpool 4, and Man City 2, Man United 1. So those are my predictions. Let's see how it all goes. And let's go back to my FPL team, where it looks like I've gone for a 4-4-2 formation, with Lacroix being my late transfer to replace Murillo. And if Ndiaye misses out, I've got Chris Wood ready to come off the bench. And yeah, next week the plan is to do Semenyo in for Ismaila Sarr. And to be honest with Chris Wood, he is looking like a sell by Game Week 7, but hopefully he does get the starts against Sunderland and Burnley over the next 3, and I can get some points in the process. Let's go to the other questions as well. I mean, yeah, the deadline's already gone by. I started Ndiaye. That's what I would have recommended. Transfer Wood, Dylan, he doesn't fit with Angeball. Well, I've kept him. We'll see how it goes. But against Burnley and Sunderland, I still think you can get the nod. Lock in, woohoo, what a deadline. Yeah, I'll enjoy it if I get the points in the end. Yay, locked in, Dylan. Finally. Yeah, we did it. A few seconds to go. That is exactly right. Drop a like for the algorithm and good luck for Game Week 4. Thank you, Abdullah. As he says, make sure to get this video to 200 likes and subscribe to the channel. Locked in and good luck, Dylan. Likewise, Sudindra. Dylan, I must be one of the few people that has actually Captain Verts. Send help. It might be more than you think, like a couple of thousand, but in the grand scheme of things, that isn't too many. Would hat-trick incoming? I hope not. I mean, if you can do that against Burnley and Sunderland, yes. Absolutely, but not against Arsenal. Easy says, my internet in my house is terrible for an hour. Offline, almost cannot make a transfer. Yeah, I feel for you. You have complained about your internet in the past, but yeah. I'm just wondering, because if you could watch the stream, I mean, how could you not make the transfer? Maybe try to have different devices ready in your situation. So if you got a phone as well and a laptop, have both of them, at the go, so you can use the website or the app to make your transfers. But yeah, ultimately, if the internet isn't at the required speed, it can cause further complications, and that's not aided by the FPL website and the app, which has been terrible this season. I have a willing Wood will troll us, as in he's not going to start in the next 2 games that we need him for, or that he's going to do well against Arsenal. Let me know what you think. Decided to sell Sarr to Semenyo and benched Wood because some rumours about were saying he always gets benched after the international break. Yeah, well, I've benched him as well. I don't think Chris Wood will start now, but the hope is that he does for those plum fixtures in the next 3. Good luck, or good game week, Dylan, and everyone. Green arrows to me all. Yeah, well, I don't always make late transfers, but maybe one of the main reasons why I do them so late is to answer all the questions. That's what I kind of focus on. And I've already got ideas in mind about what I want to do, but then I overthink towards the end. That also causes some late tinkering. And I think another reason is to kind of prevent copying. I mean, ultimately, you don't want to copy someone at my rank right now, but people still do it because they just think, yeah, if I copy someone who makes videos, I'm going to do well. That's not always a guarantee. And I'm probably doing people some good by making late transfers. Dylan's last second transfers make me feel ill. Yeah, but up until this point, have I ever failed on that? No. Hopefully I haven't jinxed it for Tuesday for UCL Fantasy. Started Murillo over Dorgu and Estev. Hope you at least get some Defcom. It's possible. I mean, looking at it, there could be some complications about selling Murillo and not Chris Wood. I think if Chris Wood is benched this week, and there are some concerns about him not starting against against Burnley or Sunderland, yeah, that's when things could really go tits up. Wood will shine with Ange. Well, I hope Chris Wood does in Game Weeks 4 and 5. Sorry, no. Game Weeks 5 and 6, not this weekend. If Wood returns today, it's going to be insane. Well, as long as Arsenal win, and if Ndai misses out and I get the points, then I'll take that. All the best, Awali. No leaks Fingon, as far as I'm aware. Why do they not make early team reveal before the deadline? What's that about? Is that about me? I've gone for Munoz captain. Let's cook. Yeah, Munoz is a good option. He's 8th in my captaincy list. Captain Xavi Simons, Viced Salah. Believe in my star boy. He's only just joined Tottenham. He's a star boy already, but he is a young player with a lot of potential, to be fair. You didn't get Mateta also, only went for Lacroix. Yeah, and by the way, this is exactly what I talked about in my team selection podcast. That was the most likely transfer, Lacroix in for Murillo, and benching Chris Wood. That's exactly what I've done, even after the Ndai injury update that we got yesterday. But yeah, I think Mateta has the highest ceiling this week. Long term, I prefer Lacroix in terms of my 50-man squad. And I think with the DEFCON potential, I'm happy with that transfer, but maybe keeping Chris Wood could cause some headaches in the coming weeks. Captain Elanga. Okay. That could still work well. I mean, against Wolves, I'm backing a 2-0 win. It could even outscore my captain because I've absolutely flopped with that in the last couple. I triple captain Salah. Now we pray. Yeah, with the triple captaincy, I can see why you want that to really go well. Mateta hat-trick, please. I hope he blanks, but he's definitely going to score. Please, Chris Wood, be benched or get a blank. Next week he can score. That's what I'm hoping for, unless Ndai misses out, but then I still would prioritise Arsenal winning than FPL points. That's just how I roll. I think Gusto starts too, for Shada and James in the Caicedo role, or alongside like you think. Yeah, Chelsea have different options, even with potential absentees and maybe giving a rest to those South American players. It's going to be a difficult lineup to predict. And by the way, we should have the lineups now. Obviously, the Chris Wood, does he start or not, will be the big news. But let's go to Arsenal's lineup first. They are the home team. And let's see if the early kickoff strikes again. Okay, so let's go into this. The overthinking and all this jazz, yada, 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 yada. With Arsenal, Raya in goal, Timber, Mosquera, Gabriel, Calafiori, Zubamendi, Marino, Odegaard, Madueke, Eze, and Gyökeres. So I've gotten 10 out of 11 correct with my Arsenal predicted lineup. So Declan Rice is on the bench. That's fair enough. Marino scored a hat-trick for Spain against Turkey in a 6-0 win. So he gets the nod. That's a bit of an attacking lineup, in my opinion. And yeah, Mosquera starting, Saliba on the bench, I think. So Kepa Arrizabalaga, White, Hincapié, Martinelli, Trossard, Wanyeri, Rice, Lewis Skelly, and Dalman. So Saliba isn't in the squad, but he should be available for the Champions League against Athletic Bilbao. And for Game Week 5, Saliba should be in contention to play there as well. So probably a late call to have him miss out. And what about Nottingham Forest? Does Chris Wood start? Yes, he does. Yeah, drum roll. That was very quick. Sells in goal. Williams, Morato, Murillo, Sangare. So just like with Arsenal, I've gone 10 out of 11. And yes, I don't know why I was doing this, by the way, but I stayed up until late doing the graphics for the stream and also thinking very deeply about these lineups. And I did have a graphic prepared for Morato at left back, but I thought, nah, let's go for something a bit more exciting. Savona right back, I thought Forest would go that way. But yeah, Morato is the left back, it seems, unless we've got a change in system happening here. Milenkovic is in the starting lineup, so yeah, I think it will be a 4-2-3-1 formation. Anderson, Gibbs White, Chris Wood, and Ndoye. So the big change there is obviously Morato at left back to replace the injured Ola Aina, who could be out for the next 3 months or so. So there we go. Chris Wood is starting. I could have some points off my bench if Ndoye misses out. We'll see how that goes. And hopefully Chris Wood gets the starts against Burnley and Sunderland. And then I won't regret not buying Mateta so much. But yeah, who knows with this bloody game. 50-50 calls can sometimes go absolutely against you, like they did last week for me. So thank you to those that are still tuning in. Be sure to drop it a like. Let's get to 200. That'd be greatly appreciated. And we did hit our Super Chat goal, so I think it's only fair to gift 5 more memberships to those that are still here to reward, well, just you tuning in and having fun in the process. So I greatly appreciate it. We are also closing in on new goals like 36,000 subscribers. We hit 35k throughout the international break and also 34,000 last month, I think. So we are making progress, and 40,000 would be an ambitious goal by the end of the season. Easy says team locked. First team, Cunha out for Grealish, triple captain Salah active, and my second team, Watkins out for Ekitike, Haaland captain. Well, that's one way of getting something going your way. Fair enough. I mean, not everyone will like that. Couldn't fit Ekitike, but locked in with the free hit team. Yeah, it's quite difficult to do that. Ekitike is at an awkward price point at 8.8 million, but ultimately I would prioritize Erling Haaland. Mateta offers better value. Maybe what you could have done is downgrade Wirtz to then get Ekitike out front for Waldemade. But yeah, that still looks pretty decent. Almost cannot make a transfer because my internet in my house offline terrible, but at least you made it. Can someone tell me, do you keep free transfers after you play the free hit? I plan to keep my transfers until Game Week 8. I want to play the free hit in Game Week 7, but I read somewhere that I will lose all transfers. That was the case before. Nowadays, you just keep what you had before you activate the free hit. With the wildcard, it's obviously the same thing, actually. But yeah, you do keep your transfers as far as I'm aware. I don't get the Konsa appeal. I mean, it's not like I massively like Konsa, but I think Villa can keep a clean sheet against Everton, to be fair. It's really a fixtures thing. I'll be honest, the only reason I picked Konsa was for the first 8 game weeks. Villa were top of the FDR, but they've had a terrible start to the season. I was more worried in my first team than my second team. That can happen when you have multiple squads. No Rice Wood to score? Not necessarily. I mean, it does hamper Arsenal's clean sheet potential. I also think Saliba missing out, as good as Mascara is a blow. But yeah, I still think Arsenal's squad depth is good, and they should dominate the possession and have plenty of chances against Forest, but it won't be an easy game. I think Forest could score. Who's the better finisher, Dylan? Wood or Gyökeres? They're both great finishers, but I think Gyökeres is better, and his goal record for Sporting and in the Champions League, even for Sweden, does back that up. But yeah, Chris Wood would be top 10 finishers in the Prem, based on what he's done in the last year or so. Hope this week gives a higher green arrows. Well, I had a massive red arrow last week. I doubled my rank, so I definitely need it. Hopefully everyone else here gets it too. On time or Dylan time, says Gary. Well, as Gandalf says, a wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. But I'm not a wizard. Is Grealish ahead of Beto on penalties? Beto should be on penalties. I don't think Grealish will take them. Nuclear Atom says, use my wildcard. I made 12 changes. I like the team, to be fair. It's similar to what I discussed in my wildcard video. Not a big fan of Van der Ven, but the fixtures are certainly appealing. And yeah, overall, I understand all of those picks. So, looking good. Wood is on halftime orange, cutting duties today. Come on, the Gunners. Well, not sure if you'll feel that way by the end of the weekend. Good luck all, says Prashant. Thank you very much. Ekitike or Isak? Ekitike. I don't think Isak will start for the time being. Also, best backline according to you on wildcard. It's covered in that video, but essentially I'd have a Palace defender like Munoz or Lacroix. I'd have Gabriel if possible. You could also go for Senesi. Maybe Joachim Andersen. If not, Goodmanson just for a 4 million defender. The other option could be Virgil van Dijk, actually. It's all covered in that video. I use my parents' hotspot, panic transfers 10 minutes before the deadline. Well, I did it 1 minute before, but that's just me. 1.5 million managers have transferred Grealish in. Yeah, and he won the Player of the Month award. He's facing his former club, Aston Villa, so he might have a lot of motivation to do well there, but I think the returns will dry up, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad FPL option. I just don't think he'll be as good as he was in August. I believe that Wood will make a lot of people regret selling him. Hopefully in Game Weeks 5 and 6, not today. Yeah, don't worry, Easy, though. At least you did it. Do you prefer UCL Fantasy or FPL? I prefer UCL Fantasy. I just think the template is less strong. You've got more diversity, especially at the beginning. There's also... I mean, look, it's also influenced by the fact I do even better in UCL Fantasy. My record in both is good, but obviously in UCL Fantasy it's even better. But I also think with UCL Fantasy, you've got the ball recoveries from the beginning. You've got the Limitless chip, which is a very exciting booster to use, especially when you've got some really plumb fixtures. You've got so many attacks to choose from, and there's a lot of different strategies flying around, even with just 2 boosters. So I'm going to say UCL Fantasy for me. Dylan last season for late transfers is his real reasons, right? Oh, the last reason? Yeah. I mean, that's one of them. I think subconsciously that might play a part. I'm not going to deny that. But I think the main reason, actually, is the overthinking. Because I look at different avenues. I'm like, oh, yeah, Mateta for Wood looks amazing this week. But then I look at the long term. In the end, I buy Lacroix. But it makes me maybe rethink things. But it's good to be decisive and do things earlier. And I'll plan to do that in future rounds, don't you worry. But I think the Ndai injury hasn't helped so much. It has added another headache to my 15-man squad. I was quite prepared over the last couple of days to just buy Lacroix and not overthink it. And there was also the Chris Wood saga. Does he start against Arsenal? I thought there was a slight chance he wouldn't, but he was in my final predicted lineup. And I just hope he starts against Burnley and Sunderland. That's the most important thing. And if that's the case, I will be happy with my decision. Let's see where we're up to now. Nick says, what do you think about this team? So yeah, once I see it, Keller, Border van der Ven, Gabriel, Barnes, Reinders, Gakpo, captain, Enzo, Ekitike, Haaland, Joao Pedro. Looking solid. My only concern is the double Spurs defense and then having Kelleher. So I think the defensive line is the weakest part of the team, but it's still pretty good overall. Wood starts, I'm cooked. Not necessarily. He might blank, and hopefully he does. Yeah. Yeah. Best Everton midfielder on wildcard. It's still Ndai for me, but the problem is he's an injured out for this weekend. Dewsbury Hall offers the best value at 5.1. Grealish is obviously the flavour of the month, and I get it. If Ndai is fit, I'm going to stick with him. Xavi Simons or Kudus. Long term, I'm going to say Xavi Simons, but he might not start this week. This is my free hit, says the F Frostbite. Not fully convinced as I tinkered loads. Leno, Anderson, Munoz, Burn, Kudus, King, Salah captain, Gakpo, Walter Marduk, Haaland, Ekitike. I really like that team. From my perspective, having a double Fulham defence is definitely bold. I went for something like Nick Pope in goal, Gabriel on the defensive line, Virgil van Dijk and stuff like that. Even Lacroix, I'm going for a back 4. I think Anderson made the bench in some of those free hit drafts, but it's a good team. I like the look of it, and I understand most of those picks. Bench full of floor-priced enablers. That's all you need, right? From my perspective, it's always good having one decent option on the bench just in case, but that could still be a cheap option as well. Hope the luck of my month in FPL, especially my birthday was 4 days ago. Happy belated birthday, Easy. Hopefully you had a good one, and yeah, we just hope we get the green arrows now. So yeah, people were surprised about Rice being benched. I was also a little bit shocked, but maybe there's a little niggle or just managing his minutes. He'll be needed against Athletic Bilbao and Man City over the next week. So I think it's just a bit of rotation in the squad. I think it's fine on paper. But yeah, Forest might fancy themselves a little bit more in terms of scoring a goal and getting a result. Captaining Elanga, not good. I heard he won't play. That's great. He was in my predicted lineup. That'd be very strange if he doesn't start again. Good luck hoping for another Chelsea win. I think you will. Whilst you're unbeaten at the GTEC Community Stadium, you haven't won there in quite a while, but I think you will just about get the job done. So Fair says, just my luck. Smash the like. Thank you very much, mate. Gameweek 4 challenge team. Yes, we might as well talk about that since this is absolutely done and dusted. And for those that are unaware, Declan Rice is benched. Marino takes his place in the lineup. Everything else was correct in my predicted lineups podcast. And for Nottingham Forest, I also got 10 correct. It's Morata at left back and Nico Williams on the right. Chris Wood does start for Nottingham Forest. With my FPL challenge team, I've got Alisson Becker in goal, Munoz, Bruno Fernandes, Salah, Haaland captain, and Mateta. What I might do actually is go for something a little bit different and go for a 1-1-3 formation, get rid of Salah or Fernandes, probably Salah in this case, and then go for Ekatike, just to go for something a little bit different. But yeah, selling Salah is obviously, it's risky. Even in FPL Challenge, you're going to be a bit like, starting to get a bit shaky. So yeah, hopefully not Pratic. That'll be my answer. Thank you, Gary. That is the next big objective. Are you doing a reaction stream tonight? It's a possibility. The thing is, Chelsea and Brentford play at 8 p.m. I'm not so sure if I'll be streaming alongside that game. I mean, the people might prefer seeing it on Sunday. I did ask earlier what people wanted to see, so let me know in the live chat now if your preference is seeing a reaction stream tonight or tomorrow. If you have to change one prediction for one of the big candidates, Liverpool, City, Arsenal and Chelsea, to lose in Gameweek 4, which one would lose? Definitely not Liverpool. Definitely not. Probably City would be the main one. If Watkins keeps blanking, will you sell him? Possibly, but the problem is you've also got Sunderland and Burnley on the horizon. That's the main issue with Watkins. I'm probably going to keep holding him until the wheels fall off. I'm on 6.9 million. This wildcard has to work. It's still early days. You shouldn't look at your rank too much, but ideally you'd still be in a good position, which gives you the confidence to make informed and logical decisions. Plan is to free in 6 and bench boost in 8. So that would leave you with a triple captaincy for the first half of the season. But yeah, playing the chips early isn't a bad strategy this season. How is this challenge team? Leno, Lacroix, Munoz, Reinders, Rodri, Haaland captain. Well, you're really going for the Manchester Derby thing, but you're going in favour of City. I don't recommend Rodri and Reinders simultaneously, to be honest. But yeah, Lacroix, Munoz and Haaland look great. I have slight doubts about Leno personally, but it's still a good team. But I wouldn't go for Rodri and Reinders, even though I get your sort of thinking there. UCL fantasy point system is slightly better than FPL. It promotes higher numbers. Yeah, there's also no kind of controversies about bonus points and stuff like that you sometimes get with FPL, especially when it comes to players who feature in the last game of a given match day. Yeah, I think with UCL fantasy, it's probably more clarity and more consistency. I think the point system is slightly better as well. But at least with FPL this season, we've got DEFCON, which can go 4 against you at times, but at least it's another avenue for points. Player of the month plus most transferred in player, you know what will happen. Also facing his former club. Another narrative you can spin there. Another birthday for Weising. So enjoy your birthday tomorrow, even though I hope Chelsea lose. Just putting it out there. Easy says, imagine Wood scores a hat-trick in Dye plays for the last 3 minutes. Well, how about Chris Wood blanks, Ndai starts, he scores, Arsenal win, and Chelsea lose. That would be much better, thank you. Mina says, in your opinion, what rule change would you like FPL to introduce to make the game more skill-based? Well, I've been saying for time that I wanted, defenders and defensive-minded players to get points for defensive action. So I do like the change this season. It's a step in the right direction. I think the AFCON transfers was probably a mistake. I think that probably bails a lot of people out by Gameweek 16, but hopefully it does result in variety around that stage of the season. But yeah, that's a good question. I mean, over the last couple of years, it would have been a very simple answer. Add a sort of ball recovery system into FPL. But now that we have something similar in place, I'd have to think about that. Top 10% UCL, it's a better game, says Gary. Look, they're both good. I'm not going to say one takes more skill than the other. You ultimately need luck. And obviously some good decisions as well to perform to the highest standard. But yeah, I do prefer UCL fantasy. Do you think Rice will come on after like 60 minutes? Yes, I do. He is on the bench after all. If Watkins and Rodgers blank this game week 2, then are you going to transfer them out? Well, I don't have Rodgers. I've only got Watkins. It depends really on my team. My priority is to sell Sarr to Semenyo. That will be on the top of the agenda. You have the most UCL league members joining the world until Michael Richards does his UCL league. Yeah, I wasn't aware that he made a league. I know he did some things with UCL Fantasy, so that would make sense. But yeah, still one of the most popular leagues in the world. I'll take that. Twister Parky says Arsenal 3, Forest 0. Bournemouth 1, Brighton 2. You do have a good record against the Cherries, to be fair. Palace 2, Sunderland 0. Everton 2, Villa 2. Fulham 1, Leeds 1. Newcastle 2, Wolves 0. West Ham 1, Spurs 1. Brentford 2, Chelsea 2. Burnley 0, Liverpool 4. And then 2-1 United. A2K Code says Burnley 0-0, classic FPL, absolute cinema. I mean, I'll take that. But my FPL team would take a massive hit from that sort of thing. Haaland likes to score against United. Yes, and Salah's record against Burnley isn't that great, but there's no doubt about it. I'll be captaining Haaland in FPL Challenge. This year, UCL will be more competitive than last year. I think it's always competitive, to be honest. You could say it gets more difficult every single season, but I think with the fixtures and the way they've kind of panned out, the chip strategies will be very crucial in the group stages. So check out that video I made yesterday, the best chip strategy guide for UCL Fantasy. And if you are a patron or member, then check out my latest draft, which is available to you exclusively, and it will be out for all subscribers and viewers tomorrow. Mateta over Pedro in Gameweek Challenge. Yeah, I'll stick with that, I think, especially as a non-Mateta owner in FPL. I like Buonanotte. I saw him live a few years ago for Rosario Central, also for Brighton when they beat Wolves 6-0. I think that was also in 2023, actually, but he's better centrally as opposed to the wings. I'll be honest, I don't know why he went to Chelsea, and he says he wants to play in the Champions League, and he looks like a fool by being left out of the Champions League squad, but there you go. I just forgot his double points this week for United and Chelsea assets. It's only double points for Man City and Man United assets, but you probably meant that anyway. But that's why I've got Bruno Fernandes and Haaland in my FPL Challenge team. Next year, World Cup Fantasy will be chaos. Yes, the current plan is to cover it. I'll keep you updated if anything changes on that front, but I did cover the last one, and it was a blast. I just rejoined your UCL Private League. Yeah, for those that were a member last season, all you need to do is use the same details and account as last season, and you're automatically in it again. And if not, you can just click the link in any of my UCL Fantasy videos, and the code is SEINOF. And if you want to join my FPL League, of course, that code is WFF0U7. The link is in the description. The same goes for FPL Challenge, of course, which is the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So it's HWWQV4. Morning, bro. What's the latest on Joao Pedro for Chelsea? Will he start? I think he will, but obviously Maresca put it in doubt yesterday with all South American players, but I think he will get the nod against Brentford. He's far too important, and Chelsea don't have many options up front. They might consider Tyreek George and Mark Guiu, but we could see them go for experience and have Reece James and Gusto playing at the same time. This was covered in my Predicted Lineups podcast, and also earlier today. Check out, just rewind a little bit, you'll see all my lineups that was covered extensively, I think on 2 occasions. So what I'm going to do now is gift 5 more memberships, and that'll make it 10 overall, just as a thank you to those that support the channel, that are still here, that are dropping a like, sharing, all that good stuff. We are closing in on 36,000 subscribers, and let's see who gets early access to my videos amongst many other perks. And remember, you can watch the latest draft before anybody else if you are signed up. So Pratik, Rayen, S1, Homegrown FPL, and JM Rock GT75. Enjoy the memberships for an entire month there. Easy says, but what happens on the right into the host of the World Cup? It will be difficult to see the safety of the fans. Yeah, but even the last one was questionable, and obviously in the USA, who even knows at this point, but yeah, there's always going to be security concerns no matter where it's going to be hosted. And also, with the Copa America last year, the security was an absolute joke. There was obviously a big delay for the final. It didn't start until, 2-3 hours later than the original scheduled time. No worries, Adamak. It's all good. I want Joao Pedro and Palmer starting and off after 60 minutes. Yeah, I mean, ideally, Joao Pedro scores, Chelsea lose. I'll take that, but I'm asking for a lot. FPL Challenge in the Big 25. All right, calm down, mate. I mean, people are still interested, so that's why I cover it as well. So yeah, thank you, everyone. It has been a blast for the last 2.5 hours. I've been streaming since 9 a.m. in the UK. Twisted Parky says, what do you reckon then? King and Haaland for Watkins and Verts, or sell Salah and Mateta in 6? Difficult one. I would probably say... The problem with Watkins is there's always the next fixture and the next one and the next one. And even Verts against Everton looks quite appealing. But yeah, in Game Week 6, I'd probably lean towards selling Watkins and Verts right now. I mean, we'll see easy. They've got a chance in Europa League this season. I think they'll do poorly in the league, compared to last season anyway, and have a good cup run. But let's not forget, they also reached the semi-final of the FA Cup last season and lost out to Manchester City. But yeah, with Ange, I mean, he does like talking a lot. I mean, with Tottenham Hotspur, of course, it was quite impressive. But yeah, with Celtic and stuff like that, winning trophies with them, I mean, it's almost a guarantee, to be honest. I mean, you can't see it now, mate, but if we go to this screen and show you my FPL squad, you'll see on the left-hand side my country and my club, both beginning with A. I didn't go with any Newcastle defender on the free this week because I have a feeling the new Wolves striker Tolu will have an impact on his debut. In my predicted lineup, I've got Hwang Hee-chan starting, but there is a chance that the new striker starts in his place. So yeah, maybe you are cooking with that prediction. We'll find out by the end of today. Martin says, good luck, mate. Gonna watch your UCL Fantasy Chip Strategy right now. Much appreciated. And keep your eyes peeled for the latest draft tomorrow. And of course, the team selection over the coming days. Mina says, thank you, Dylan. Good luck to you, bro. Likewise, Mina. Cheers, bro. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Adamak, as well. I will be wrapping things up. And if you haven't already, you know the drill. Like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share the stream around with those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy. There's plenty of content to look forward to for both fantasy formats. And the latest draft will be released tomorrow. The team selection should be out on Monday. And another deadline stream, but this time for the Champions League, will take place on the Tuesday. As for a reaction stream, let me know in the comments section and also in the live chat if you want to see it take place tonight, because Chelsea versus Brentford is at 8 p.m. So that does make it a little bit awkward potentially. Otherwise, I'll try to do it tomorrow, but I'll keep you posted either way. But the priority will be UCL Fantasy content because the Matchday 1 deadline is looming. And I'll try to get the transfer tips for FPL, the best wildcard team, and my team selection over the next week. But like I said, UCL Fantasy will take priority over the next couple. Thoughts on Sharda as a differential? I'm not really too keen, and he could lose penalties after that horrific miss in Game Week 3. I think Igor Thiago should be on penalties now. He hasn't had a good start to the season, Kevin Sharda, and there are better options elsewhere. Did I make a mistake not selling Wood from Mateta for a -4? Only time will tell, but it's not just about today. It's about Game Weeks 5 and 6, where Chris Wood faces Sunderland and Burnley. So ultimately, I still think not getting Chris Wood, not getting Mateta in for a -4 is the right decision on paper. We'll see if luck is on your side. Rooting for an Arsenal win today. Hope Timber scores. You would be asking for a lot because he scored a brace and got an assist against Leeds. He is a defender after all, but still one of the best defenders in FPL right now. I have a question, Dylan. So when do you think Harvey Elliott will start? This week. If you saw my lineups earlier, I showed it on 2 occasions. I've got Harvey Elliott starting on the right-hand side. Well, Nuno, he could be at Wolves if they sack Vitor Pereira in a couple of weeks to months' time. West Ham, I mean, there's a job opening could happen very soon in the Premier League, and there, I think a lot of clubs will be interested in Nuno after what he did with Forest last season. Thank you very much, Gary. The UCL Fantasy League code is SEINOF. Just go to any of my UCL Fantasy videos and you'll see it in the description, and also on my Twitter and YouTube and the Discord server. It's very easy to find on those platforms. Best transfer and worst transfer this window. Difficult to say at this moment in time. I'd have to think about this, but worst transfer, I'd say Matthias Tell from Tottenham Hotspur, left out of the Champions League squad. He was signed permanently this window. I mean, that's something that springs to mind. Best transfer is so difficult to say. Yeah, I'd have to give that more thought. I did have a prediction from a few weeks ago. Let's see if I can bring that very quickly. I think I said best signing. Yeah, Isak. Yeah, boring, I guess, but I think you'll make a big difference up front. Sorry for that, Lewis. That's from Cyberpunk. I think tomorrow's live stream is better, in my opinion. I think in this context, it might be. I just also have to weigh it up with the FPL and UCL fantasy videos I want to record, but like I said, the team selection for matchday 1 will be on the top of my agenda, really. Hopefully Munoz captain pays off. Good luck with the game, Dylan. Likewise, Fenerbahce. And thank you, Gary. All right, have a great football weekend. Likewise, Latino Dialects. Can you see Brentford causing Chelsea problems and United causing City problems? Yes, especially in the case of United. Brentford have a good record against Chelsea, but I think, yeah, ultimately Chelsea will get the win. That is my opinion. With City United, I'm a bit more conflicted. Good luck to Mr. Parky and everyone else watching. I'll see you very soon, hopefully for another reaction stream and for more UCL fantasy and FPL content. Take care, enjoy the football, and all the best of luck for Gameweek 4.